Chapter 459. Marquis Nanfeng had tried to rope him in because he was an array Dao Grandmaster and the strength of the Origin sect. Qin Shujian knew this very well. After the Origin sect had annexed the Heavenly Corpse sect and established the Yuan Pavilion, its strength had changed. In terms of strength, in terms of resources, the Origin sect was not any weaker than the other top sections. Although the cultivation world had always been weaker than the Imperial Court, that was only in comparison to the Imperial Court. It was definitely not as simple as a prefecture or a region. For a marquis, if they could obtain the support of a top sect, their strength would definitely increase tremendously. After all, half of the cultivation world's strength was made up of the top sections. The remaining half was made up of other sects, factions, and itinerant cultivators. Thus, it was obvious how much weight the top sects had. Zhang Yi has unified the Nanfeng prefecture. His strength is indeed top-notch among the marquis. Unfortunately, compared to the strength of the marquis, I value the foundation of the Imperial Court more. Otherwise, this matter would have been settled. Qin Shujian shook his head silently. When it came to rebellion, one could only win and not lose. Once one lost, only death would await them. Now that the Origin sect was in a good situation, what they needed in the short term was not time, but other things. Unless he was crazy, he would not rebel with Zhang Yi. Otherwise, it would be best to play it safe. After entering the Level Chuan prefecture, Qin Shujian headed toward the location of the demon disaster, according to the original location he had obtained. This time, he did not use the teleportation door. This was mainly because the distance was not far. Rather than spending money to use the teleportation door, it was faster to fly in the sky. A stream of light streaked across the sky, creating a series of explosions. He crossed a true dominion. In less than an hour, Qin Shujian had already arrived at the location of the demon disaster. However, the scene in front of him made Qin Shujian somewhat depressed. There was not a single living being on the scorched black demonic land. There was not even a single skeleton. Among the ruins, there were still traces of the stronghold. The place was still the same. However, the evil demons were nowhere to be found. Qin Shujian's spiritual force spread out and quickly covered the entire devil land. The devil qi in the air is still there, but it has already begun to dissipate. There are no traces of the demon disaster, nor are there any traces of demons. It seems that someone was one step ahead of me and eliminated all the evil spirits here. Qin Shujian's face was gloomy. He carefully scanned the surroundings several times with his divine sense before withdrawing it. There were no traces of demons in the demonic land. Under such circumstances, there were only two possibilities. The first possibility was that the evil spirit had escaped. Secondly, the evil spirit was dead. If it was the former, it was impossible for the evil demon to escape without causing a commotion. However, from what he had seen when he arrived and the fact that the demonic earth showed no signs of spreading, the probability of the evil demon escaping was extremely low. In that case, only the latter was left. Although Qin Shujian had long expected that some of the demons would have been exterminated by others before he had arrived, he hadn't expected them to break out of their seals. But when they really met, he still felt heartache. Because the evil demon sealed in this place was not an ordinary evil demon, but a seal set up by an 8-star formation. In that case, this evil demon was at least at the 4th tier of the celestial being realm. If there was a difference in strength between both demons, the life source and energy they contributed would also be different. The life source of a demon at the 4th or 5th tier of the celestial being realm was comparable to that of 2 demons at the 2nd or 3rd tier of the celestial being realm. He did not stay here for too long. Qin Shujian immediately flew into the air and rushed to the next place. Liang Mountain Spirit Region, Yuan Sect. Several elders of the sect were gathered together as if they were having a casual gathering. Su Yuanming took a sip of spirit tea and then put down the teacup. He looked at the others and said, "I suggest that Yuan Sect no longer accept missions related to the Imperial Court and the rebel army. Now that both sides are in a tense situation, if Yuan Sect openly accepts such missions, it will definitely cause a lot of trouble." Now that Yuan Sect had become famous, they had begun to provide Yuan Sect with income. Most of the people who issued the missions were forces of the cultivation world. and some were itinerant cultivators. The difficulty of the missions varied. Anyway, as long as they were paid, Yuan sect would put them up. It was just that Yuan sect had a mission rating system and then assigned a corresponding level to the missions. But during this period of time, there were also some missions that involved the imperial court and the feudal lords. For example, assassinating an important official of the imperial court, or assassinating a certain feudal lord, or the advisor of a certain feudal lord. There were even missions to assassinate Shiyang. When such missions appeared, they were basically immediately suppressed by Yuan sect. In the land of the Great Zhao, what was the difference between offering a bounty on the emperor of the Great Zhao and courting death? The people who issued these missions obviously wanted to cause trouble for Yuan sect. So, during this period of time, for the sake of the missions, Yuan sect had also destroyed a few forces. Then, they followed the vines to find the melons and set their eyes on a few sections. It was just that there was no definite evidence, and it was not good to cause too much trouble in the current situation, so they temporarily gave up. In Su Yuanming's opinion, now that Yuan sect had the strength of the imperial court, it was wise to protect themselves. As for whether or not refusing these missions would affect Yuan sect's reputation, it was not an important issue. Niu Feng said, "It's good to not accept the missions of the imperial court and the feudal lords. Not many of those missions can be completed, and instead, we will offend others for no reason. But we can investigate. What is the background of these people who issued the missions? Are they the enemies of these people, or are they just here to disgust us?" Speaking of this, his expression was cold, and he did not hide his killing intent. If they are enemies, then so be it. But if they are deliberately framing my sect, this matter will not be over. Although he had been an elder of Yuan sect for the past few years, Niu Feng had also slowly cultivated his character. But the character of the bandit leader of Mingai Mountain had not changed much. He was not the only one. In the entire Yuan sect, there was never a lack of vicious and merciless people. I'm just afraid that some people will be used as a tool and still don't know what happened. Su Yuanming sneered. Elder Su is right. Yuan sect should not intervene in the affairs of the imperial court and feudal lords. The unperturbed Zheng Fong slowly said at this moment, "The Marquis of Wu and has rebelled, and the Western pacifying General Luo Jing has died in battle. Since the Marquis of Qianshan rebelled and started the war, this is the first time the imperial court has suffered such a loss. From the actions of the Marquis of Wu, the other rebellious feudal lords must have secretly formed an alliance. Soon, the world will be reshuffled. With our sect's strength, it is not difficult to protect ourselves. But if we intervene, we will be reduced to ashes if we are not careful." Great Elder, do you think that they are preparing for a decisive battle? It is hard to say if it will be a decisive battle, but the current situation cannot be maintained for too long. Wu En, Bai Yong, Nanfeng, Luo Yu, and Qianshan have all rebelled, and the Great Zhao has lost 3 or 4 out of 10. The other feudal lords also have an ambiguous attitude, and are most likely waiting for an opportunity. Once the strength of these rebels has accumulated to a certain extent, even if the imperial court does not act, they will be the first to start a decisive battle. After all, the Great Zhao has a deep foundation. If they are given a chance to rest and build up strength, these feudal lords will not be able to eat or sleep in peace. Zhang Fong stroked his beard and shook his head as he spoke. In the eyes of these feudal lords, the imperial court itself was the greatest threat. They could take advantage of the death of the human emperor and rise up in rebellion, but after the imperial court recovered, this power that had ruled the world for thousands of years would still be able to sweep through the world. So, these people would not give the imperial court a chance to breathe. Also, for these feudal lords, there was only one goal in rebelling, and that was to sit on the position of the former human emperor. As long as the imperial court was not destroyed, then this position would forever fall into the hands of the imperial family. Even if someone established a country and dynasty, it would not be legitimate, and it would be difficult to truly convince the masses. It could be said, the 6,000 years of the Great Zhao had left an indelible mark on the world. All the people only knew that the Great Zhao was the rightful ruler, and the rest were all rebels. This influence had to be eliminated. Only by eliminating the Great Zhao first, and then relying on time, the influence would fade bit by bit until it completely disappeared. Niu Feng suddenly sneered and said, "The attitudes of the other feudal lords are ambiguous, and the actions of the Baiyun manor are difficult to guess. I wonder what our Marquis of Baiyun is planning." When he mentioned the Marquis of Baiyun, everyone else's expression became a little more serious. If there was anyone in the Baiyun manor that they feared the most, it would be the Marquis of Baiyun. He was backed by the imperial court. Not only was he in charge of a manor, but he was also a mighty figure. When it came to strength, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was the strongest person in the Baiyun manor. An almighty, not to mention a prefecture. Even if one looked at the entire world, they would be considered an unparalleled powerhouse. Although Yuanzong was now very close to the Marquis of Baiyun, but in the end, one side represented the imperial court, and the other side represented the cultivation world of the Baiyun manor. The attitudes of both sides had always been ambiguous. Furthermore, the current situation had added an element of uncertainty to the relationship between the two. If it was possible, Zhang Feng and the others did not want to be enemies with the Marquis of Baiyun. Although Yuanzong was strong now, he was still far from being an enemy of the Marquis of Baiyun. Unless one day, Yuanzong could also have an expert who could contend with a mighty figure. Otherwise, he would always be weaker than the Marquis of Baiyun. Su Yuaming looked solemn and said in a deep voice, "If the Marquis of Baiyun rebels, then the imperial court will probably collapse. Our sect has been cooperating with the Marquis of Baiyun before, and we are also established in the Baiyun manor. In this case, I'm afraid the Marquis of Baiyun will not leave us alone. From today onwards, our sect will temporarily restrain our strength and seal the mountain gate when necessary to protect ourselves. For now, that's the only way. Have there been any movements in the Skyen mountain range and the demon clan recently?" Zhang Feng changed the topic and directly changed the topic. Hearing this, Su Yuaming shook his head and said, "The Skyen mountain range has been much quieter recently. We regularly release corresponding tasks for the disciples to go in and kill monsters, so we don't have to worry about the beast tide in the short term. However, I heard some movements in the demon clan." The demon clan? Zhang Feng's old face became a little more solemn. The demon clan was the biggest problem. As a race that was comparable to the human clan in its heyday, only when the human emperor was alive could they firmly suppress the human clan. Such strength. It was no longer something that one or two sects could contend with, unless the entire human clan's strength was counted. Otherwise, they would have to retreat in the face of the demon clan. Su Yuaming said, "I heard that a demon saint of the demon clan has appeared and went to the Thousand Mountains prefecture to cooperate with Gu Chongqing. A demon saint has appeared. Although we can't verify the authenticity of this news, the probability of it being fake is not high. A demon saint is a matter of great importance, and the relationship between the two clans is delicate now. If a demon saint has really appeared, the news would not have spread so quickly. What if the news was spread by the demon clan?" Su Yuaming smiled slightly. He also had some doubts about the source of this news. A demon saint's matter was not ordinary. The most likely reason for the news to spread was that the demon clan secretly spread it. As for the purpose, it was unknown for the time being. However, these things did not have much of an impact on them. However, the appearance of a demon saint also proved that the demon clan was no longer willing to silently watch the show and plan to participate in it personally. Now, the Great Zhao Empire was facing collapse. It was about time for the demon clan to make a move. Baiyun Prefecture is now close to the demon clan, and there is a powerful figure, Marquis Baiyun, guarding it. If the demon clan does not make a move, it will be a thunderous blow. We still need to prepare early. Song Hong said in a deep voice with a solemn expression, especially since the Liang Mountain Spirit Domain is close to the Endless Mountain Range. If the demon clan makes a move, Marquis Baiyun may not be able to get the news immediately. It was better to rely on oneself than on others. In the end, one still had to rely on one's own strength. Yuanzong was located in the Liang Mountain Spirit Domain, which to a large extent determined that if the demon clan launched a large-scale attack, he would be the first to bear the brunt. However, after annexing the Heavenly Corpse sect, Yuanzong's strength had also improved greatly, so there was not much to worry about. Yuanzhong has a formation left by the sect master, and Jiang Feng is guarding the mountain gate. Even if an ordinary celestial being comes, we can deal with it. When Niu Feng said this, he suddenly felt a little depressed. He did not live up to his title as the mountain guardian elder when Jiang Feng came. When it came to guarding the mountain, this heavenly corpse sect with the combat strength of a celestial being was obviously much stronger than Niu Feng. An airborne realm, a celestial being. The difference between the two realms was like heaven and earth. Even if Niu Feng was given 80 to 100 years, he was not confident that he could advance to the celestial being realm. Now that Qin Shujian was out, the matters in Yuanzhong were basically decided by a few elders led by Jingfeng. Therefore, after a simple discussion, they decided on some things. The first was the problem of Yuan Pavilion. In the face of the current internal strife in the imperial court, Yuan Pavilion, as a force of the cultivation world, definitely could not participate in it, unless they also had the heart to fight for the world, or had the idea of fighting for the merit of ascending to the throne, or else they definitely had to stay away from it. On the other hand, they had to pay attention to the movements of the Demon Clan at all times and be prepared to deal with the Demon Clan's attack at any time. Marquis, Yuan Pavilion has cancelled the tasks related to the imperial court and the feudal lords. It seems that Yuanzhong intends to play safe. In the seat below, Fubo cupped his hands and said. Marquis Baiyun shook his head and laughed, saying, at this time, it is normal to play safe. With the current situation in the world, anyone who participates will be crushed if they are not careful. He also agreed with Yuanzhong's approach in his heart. At this time, playing safe was much better than foolishly rushing in. Fubo pondered for a moment and said, I heard that Marquis Nanfeng, Zhang Yi, had once met Qin Shujian. Talents will be roped in wherever they go. Qin Shujian is a smart person. He knows what to do. Marquis Baiyun did not care at all and said with a faint smile, Zhang Yi is now sitting in Nanfeng Prefecture and is quite proud in his heart. No wonder. After all, he joined forces with Shen Hong to plot against the imperial court, and even the West pacifying General Luo Jing died. Luo Jing's strength is not weak. It is a pity that he died like this. At the mention of Luo Jing, Marquis Baiyun's expression was a little strange. Although he did not know much about the West pacifying general, he had met and talked with him. He also had some respect for Luo Jing, who had once followed the human emperor to wipe out the enemies. To be honest, Marquis Baiyun was also shocked when he heard the news of Luo Jing's death. Marquis, now that the 5 prefectures have all rebelled, the situation is out of the imperial court's control. Now, more than half of the imperial court's forces are in the hands of the various prefectures. Without the human emperor's suppression, I'm afraid that the current sacred emperor will not be able to suppress them. What are you trying to say? Marquis, now is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. With your power and influence in the many years that our Baiyun prefecture has been operating, our strength is not weaker than the other prefectures. Moreover, as long as you raise your arm and call for help, the cultivation world and other experts will definitely come to join you. When the human emperor was still alive, we were naturally loyal to the imperial court. But now that Shi Yang has succeeded the throne, he is much weaker than the human emperor. What qualifications does he have to make us submit? Fu Bo no longer beat around the bush, and even stopped using honorifics when he addressed Shi Yang. His intention to rebel was clear as day. Marquis Baiyun was not angry and asked in return, do you want to rebel? I'm just thinking for you, Marquis. If you rebel, I will follow you with my life. Let's talk about this later. Marquis Baiyun waved his hand and did not want to talk too much about this matter. He naturally understood Fu Bo's words. If he wanted to rebel, this was the best time to do so. However, Marquis Baiyun understood that with the human emperor's methods, it was impossible for him to not have any backup plans. He had a bad premonition that the situation in the Great Zhao had collapsed so quickly. All of this had happened too quickly. It was so fast that no one had expected it. If the Great Zhao had collapsed, with its thousands of years of foundation, it would not have encountered problems so quickly. At least, it was more reasonable for it to have reached this stage after a few decades. Fu Bo also knew what Marquis Baiyun was thinking and immediately said, although the human emperor's methods are shocking, He has suppressed the world for so many years and accumulated a lot of resentment. Now that the human emperor has failed to break through and suddenly died, it is normal for the situation to go out of control. Time does not wait for me. If we hesitate for too long and miss this good opportunity, it will not be good. Although Marquis Bayun did not want to talk about this matter, as the other party's aide, he could not let this opportunity slip by. Even if this angered the other party, he would not hesitate. After all, every official had the idea of succeeding the emperor. This was something that would bring glory to their ancestors and family. Once they succeeded, they would be immortalized for generations. The current officials in the imperial court, as well as the various vassals, had once followed the human emperor to conquer the world. When the great Zhao had established the world and wantonly infected people, they had their current status. This was the benefit of succeeding the emperor. Now that Marquis Bayun had such a big advantage, Fubo really did not want him to hesitate for too long and miss this good opportunity. Once the other party succeeded, then he would succeed, and the Fujia he was in would become a famous family in the world. Marquis Bayun fell into a short silence. Clearly, he was also considering the gains and losses of this matter. It was true that the Shao family had been loyal to the imperial court for generations, but Marquis Bayun was not blindly loyal. If the imperial court was worthy of his loyalty, he would naturally stand on its side. However, if he encountered an irreversible situation, he would not die with the imperial court. In the end, there was still a problem of gains and losses to consider. Let's wait and see. Marquis Bayun thought for a moment and still did not make a decision. Yes, when Fubo saw this, he did not insist anymore. At this point, Marquis Bayun still had not made a decision, so he did not dare to say too much. After all, if he said too much, he would be suspected of forcing the emperor to abdicate. You may leave first. I will carefully consider this matter. I will take my leave. After Fubo bowed and left, Marquis Bayun did not do anything, but the voice in his mind sounded again. Why don't you agree? If you can sit on the throne, it will be very beneficial to you. Is there something different about the throne? Of course. The voice responded to Marquis Bayun's doubts. The throne of the human emperor gathers the fate of the world. The person who sits on the throne can control the fate of the world and has great benefits. In ancient times, there was a supreme expert who established the heavenly court and ruled over a part of the world. Tens of thousands of races came to worship it. It was much more powerful than the current human emperor. The ancient heavenly court really existed? Marquis Bayun's expression changed. He was shocked by this information. It was not that he had never heard of the ancient heavenly court. After all, he had a prefecture, so he would always hear some ancient rumors. It was just that these rumors were both true and false. Not all of them could be distinguished. The voice said, the heavenly court naturally existed. Back then, a supreme expert of the human race appeared out of nowhere and swept across the world, intimidating the tens of thousands of races. In the end, the heavenly court was condensed with the fate of the tens of thousands of races. That was the peak of the human race. Unfortunately, since the arrival of the Great Calamity and the collapse of the heavenly court, many of the powerhouses in the heavenly court also died. The tens of thousands of races were killed and injured. Now, only a few races are left. One of them is the human race, and the other is the demon race. Marquis Bayun did not come back to his senses for a long time after hearing this. He had never asked the other party about the ancient heavenly court, so he did not know there was such a rumor. In fact, Marquis Bayun did not know that the ancient human race was so powerful when it was strong. This was even more shocking than when the human emperor established the world and established the great Zhao dynasty for thousands of years. However, what really concerned Marquis Bayun was, what kind of great calamity could cause the heavenly court to collapse and the tens of thousands of races to die? Chapter 460. The ancient human powerhouses were able to establish the heavenly court and rule over the 10,000 races. What kind of calamity could cause the heavenly court to be destroyed and the 10,000 races to be wiped out? Marquis Bayun asked the question in his heart. According to the voice, the ancient human race should have been very strong, at least much stronger than now. After all, the ancient human race could suppress the 10,000 races. But now, the human race couldn't even subdue a single demon. The gap between them was simply too great. In his mind, the voice sounded in a low voice. You should know the reason why the heavenly court collapsed. You mean the demon abyss. Marquis Bayun was not a stupid person. Since the other party had made it so obvious, he had guessed the result in an instant. However, this result, he did not expect it. That's right, it's the demon abyss. At the mention of the demon abyss, the voice had a hint of killing intent. This world has existed for a very, very long time. So long that no one can even find the source of this world. Since the birth of this world, it has been constantly expanding outwards. After a long time, this world gave birth to all living beings. Among these living beings, there were not only the human race and the demon race, but also other races. Some races were gifted, and some races were born with divine power. That era could be said to be the most glorious time of this world. The voice seemed to be reminiscing and reminiscing. However, in the end, the voice became angry again. However, at that time, the world grew to an extremely vast extent and finally connected with the demon abyss. The demon abyss gave birth to thousands of evil demons, and each of them was at least in the celestial realm. Above the evil demons were demon gods, and each demon god was at least in the 7th level of the celestial realm. In addition, the evil demons were immortal. Every time they died, they would be reborn in the demon abyss. At that time, the heavenly court was at its peak, and there were many celestial realm powerhouses. Even so, in the face of the endless evil demons, the heavenly court was defeated in the end. Although there were some supreme treasures in ancient times that could really kill the evil demons, there were too few of them. Moreover, after the evil demons discovered these supreme treasures, some demon gods also took action to snatch and destroy them. In the end, the only one left is Zhu Bing of the myriad races. It's just that Zhu Bing isn't easy to raise. Even among the 10,000 races, there aren't many who have Zhu Bing. How could they fight against the evil demons? The Marquis of Northern Cloud remained silent as he listened to what the voice was saying. There were some secrets. It wasn't something that one could know just because they were in a high position. Many things had been buried in the river of time after countless years. It was very difficult to find out the truth. The heavenly court has been defeated. The demonic abyss has successfully invaded this world. Although the myriad races are powerful, even the heavenly court has been defeated. How can those myriad races that are inferior to the heavenly court resist the demonic abyss? That was the darkest period of time. At that time, the Emperor of Heaven of the heavenly court was also the strongest person in the human race. After discovering that the 10,000 races could not resist the demonic abyss, he used the fate of the 10,000 races as the foundation and finally slashed out. This slash caused more than half of the world to return to ruins. It also cut off the connection between the demonic abyss and the world. However, it was also this slash that caused the 10,000 races to suffer heavy losses. Along with the return of the world, it caused the deaths of hundreds of millions of living beings. Some races grafted their anger towards the Emperor of Heaven onto the entire human race. There were also some races that approved of the Emperor of Heaven's actions. But no matter what, after this slash, the heavenly court completely collapsed. All the top powerhouses either died during the invasion of the demonic abyss or accompanied the world to ruins when the heavenly court collapsed. Until now, there aren't many traces of the heavenly court left in the world. After hearing the other party's words, Marquis Bayun remained silent. With one slash, the world returned to ruins and all living beings were destroyed. Although he didn't agree with the Emperor of Heaven's actions, he could feel the other party's helplessness. The demonic abyss invaded. The 10,000 races were defeated. If they didn't cut off the connection with the demonic abyss, the entire world would become a demonic land. At that time, all the 10,000 races would die. However, shattering the world and cutting off the connection with the demonic abyss could save a portion of living beings. Such a method was no different from a warrior cutting off his wrist. However, not everyone could make such a choice. Back then, The great calamity of the demonic abyss caused the heavenly court to collapse and the 10,000 races to return to ruins. Now, the world has been reborn. The strength of this world is much weaker than that of the human race back then, not to mention compared to the entire 10,000 races. Now, the second great calamity of the demonic abyss is not far away. The possibility of you being able to resist the evil demons is very slim. If you want to cut off the connection between the world and the demonic abyss, the current cultivators might not be able to do it. I still say the same thing. The ultimate heavenly connection and letting the world enter the age of Dharma is the only hope of survival. You might still be able to make it now. With my help, coupled with your almighty realm, there aren't many people who can contend against you. The ultimate heavenly connection, severing the foundation of the world's cultivation and letting the world enter the age of Dharma. Marquis Bayun took a deep breath and finally shook his head. Why didn't the heavenly court cut off the world's cultivation back then? I'm afraid they also wanted to leave a hope. As long as they continued to cultivate, there would be a day when they could contend against the demonic abyss. In his opinion, the heavenly court would rather destroy the world and cut off the connection with the demonic abyss than cut off the path of cultivation. There was probably a glimmer of hope in their hearts. Hearing this, the voice was silent for a moment. After a while, it replied, "Perhaps the heavenly court's approach back then was a mistake. Now, even if the humans and demons join forces, there's no hope of resisting the demonic abyss. We'll talk about the future in the future." Marquis Bayun changed the topic and asked, "There should be a realm above the celestial being, right?" "Yes, the Emperor of Heaven back then was a powerhouse who surpassed the celestial being realm." The voice replied accurately, "It's just that it's not easy to break through the threshold of the celestial being realm. The human emperor of the human race hasn't taken this step yet. The Emperor of Heaven can't stop the demonic abyss. Then, if someone is stronger than the Emperor of Heaven, can they stop the demonic abyss? I've never met someone who can be stronger than the Emperor of Heaven. The realm that the Emperor of Heaven is at is the true peak of the myriad races. The so-called peak is only because no one has truly touched on the higher level. You have to know that there's no end. Perhaps it's not impossible to go further." Marquis Bayun shook his head, not agreeing with the voice's words. "There's no end to the Tao. You're the first person who dares to say so." The voice seemed to have thought of something. In the end, it only said one sentence before completely falling silent. "I look forward to the day when you can break through the peak of the Emperor of Heaven. Break through the peak of the Emperor of Heaven, ascend to the throne, and sit on the destiny of the human race." Marquis Bayun's expression was inexplicable. He muttered to himself, "Let's wait a little longer. It's still too early." Subsequently, he took out a letter with the seal of the South Wind Manor on it. This was a letter from the Alliance. They hoped that the North Cloud Manor could take action together and completely destroy the Great Zhao Empire. Without seeing Marquis Bayun do anything, the letter directly turned into ashes. Ever since Zhang Yi completely took over the South Wind Manor and Wuan Manor officially rebelled, the various battles started again. The marquises of the 5 mansions formed an alliance. Tens of millions of troops attacked the imperial court together. Facing such an attack, the imperial court had to treat it seriously. There were almost no clashes. The imperial court directly gave up the 5 mansions and then gathered strength. With the Middle State Manor as the foundation, they directly faced the 5 mansions alliance. The battle situation changed in an instant. The Middle State Manor, which was supposed to be the center of the world, suddenly became the place to face the rebel army. On the same day, Xiang finally couldn't withstand the pressure. He gathered the marquises of the other mansions to send troops to help the emperor and resist the rebel army together. The Great Zhao situation collapsed quickly. It completely exceeded everyone's expectations. As early as when the human emperor was alive, there were already rebellions. There were even cases of marquises establishing their own countries. However, these things were unable to shake the foundation of the Great Zhao. Even if Marquis Qianshan, Gu Chongqing, rebelled, the situation was still under the control of the Great Zhao Empire. However, ever since the human emperor fell, in just 1 or 2 years, the Great Zhao completely lost control of the world. The marquises all rebelled, causing the situation to collapse to an irreversible point. Boom! Qin Shujian's seal fell and suppressed an evil spirit. In an instant, the void buzzed. Then the array fell. The red lotus of purgation ignited and completely swallowed the evil spirit. After he absorbed the red lotus, his life force finally broke through the 700 million mark. After his life force broke through the 700 million mark, the Guiyuan ancestral cannon once again had a plus sign that could be upgraded. For Qin Shujian now, as long as he had enough life force, he would immediately convert it into strength. So, after using up the 700 million life force, the Guiyuan ancestral cannon was officially upgraded to the 5th level of the divine martial arts. At the same time, his strength was further enhanced. Guiyuan ancestral cannon 35, high divine level, level 5 ancient immortal body, level 5 impenetrable, level 5 red lotus of purgation. These were Qin Shujian's current attributes. In addition to that, his luck points had finally reached 1,300 points. This meant that 13 evil spirits had already fallen in his hands. And with the successive breakthroughs in his realm and the absorption of many red lotuses, his spiritual god had officially reached 320 meters from its original height of more than 200 meters. 320 meters of spiritual god. This had already exceeded the range of the ordinary peak of the divine martial realm. A cultivator at the peak of the divine martial realm would have a spiritual god of 300 meters. Only those great cultivators at the half-step celestial being level could break through this limit and reach another level. In other words, without relying on array techniques, Qin Shujian was already not weaker than a half-step celestial being level 1 expert. But in terms of true strength, even without using array techniques, he was still stronger than a half-step celestial being. Back then, the envoy of the Black Abyss was also a half-step celestial being, but his overall strength was definitely inferior to mine now. The 5th level of the divine martial realm is comparable to a half-step celestial being. If I continue to improve like this, maybe I don't need to break through to the celestial being realm to have the combat strength comparable to a celestial being. Qin Shujian thought to himself. This was a very important transformation. At that time, with the help of array techniques, he would have the confidence to fight against experts at the Demon King level. However, these were only his guesses. Everything had to really reach that point before he could be completely sure. During this period of time, although Qin Shujian had been killing demons, the Sky Origin sect had sent him messages almost every day. The content of the messages was naturally the current situation of the world and the changes in the situation. The Marquis of Bayun of the 5 Provincial Alliance hasn't made a move yet, but it's about time to take sides. In this case, the Great Zhao Empire shouldn't be able to hold on for too long. The decisive battle between the two sides will only be tomorrow. At that time, either the Great Zhao Empire will defeat the rebel army and reshuffle the cards in the world, or the rebels will win and the Great Zhao Empire, which has existed for thousands of years, will be completely destroyed. But no matter what, it's time to reshuffle the cards in the world. As this time approached, Qin Shujian became more and more anxious. It was really time to reshuffle the cards. The entire world would be affected. If the Sky Origin sect wanted to stabilize the situation, it would naturally be better if he was stronger. In particular, the Demon Clan was unwilling to just watch the show and wanted to get involved. This made him understand how tense the situation was. The 5th stage divine martial realm is not enough. Even if I'm at the peak divine martial realm, I'm still lacking. I have to break through to the heaven being realm and not just become an early stage heaven being. Only then will I be able to protect myself from the surging waves and not completely capsize. When he thought of this, Qin Shujian immediately left his original spot and rushed to the next place. Now that he was killing more and more demons, he was getting more and more comfortable killing them. In the True Dominion, condensing 4 universal skylocks was a symbol of invincibility. No matter what kind of demon it was, they were no match for him. Especially with the help of the array formation, these demons had no chance of escaping even if they wanted to. In the short span of slightly more than a month, Qin Shujian didn't just travel to Level Chuan Prefecture. He also traveled to Fallen Moon Prefecture, White Yong Prefecture, and other prefectures. To him, it didn't matter which prefecture it was. What mattered was which place the demons were closest to him. In order to save time, Qin Shujian no longer targeted the prefectures one by one. Instead, he went to wherever he was closest to. This way, he would be able to avoid taking unnecessary detours. After all, while he was killing demons, other people were also hunting demons. If he didn't happen to encounter them, he might end up empty-handed. In this case, this wasn't the first time Qin Shujian had encountered such a situation. He had encountered empty-handed situations no less than 3 to 5 times. Of course, when it came to kill stealing, no one else had been able to do so except for Dan Hao, who had made him experience the evils of the human world. In the span of slightly more than a month, Qin Shujian had also gained a lot. His luck points had broken through the 5,000 mark. As for the origin returning ancestral canon, it had successfully reached the 8th level. The 8th level of the origin returning ancestral canon. This also meant that his cultivation level had officially reached the 8th level of the divine martial realm. He could be considered to have entered the late-stage divine martial realm. He was only 2 levels away from the peak divine martial realm. However, after breaking through to the 8th level of the divine martial realm, Qin Shujian found that his original calculation was also wrong. He originally thought that after reaching the peak of the divine martial realm, he would need about 10 billion life sources. But when he broke through to the 8th level, he had already consumed 2 billion. Combined with the consumption of the previous breakthrough, the consumption of life sources had already broken through the 5 billion mark. And judging from the past progress, the last 2 levels of life sources were often unrealistic. In this case, if he wanted to reach the peak of the divine martial realm, he would need to consume at least 15 billion. Combined with the previous consumption, a divine martial realm would consume at least 20 billion life sources. 20 billion life sources. This doesn't include the consumption of the divine martial realm to break through to the diviner realm. If it is included, I'm afraid it will add another 20 to 30 billion. If he didn't count, he wouldn't know. But when he did, even Qin Shujian himself was shocked. Judging from the life sources that Yuan Zong provided every day, if the original foundation was maintained, it would take more than 30 years, a total of more than 10,000 days. More than 30 years to reach the diviner realm. This time was actually not very long. All the cultivators in the world who had reached the diviner realm had all gone through hundreds of years of hard work. But looking at the current situation, whether it was the human race or the demon race, it was impossible for them to develop steadily for 30 years. Not to mention 30 years. Qin Shujian suspected that the current situation could not even last for 3 months. Fortunately, the Red Lotus of Purgation can directly kill evil spirits after leveling up. Otherwise, even if we don't have to wait 30 years, this time would not be shortened by much. However, if the Red Lotus of Purgation can kill evil spirits, then can it also kill players? Evil spirits were immortal and indestructible. Players were also immortal and indestructible. Comparing the two, there was a great similarity. Such a situation did not allow him to not think about this question. But, although this idea appeared, Qin Shujian did not have time to test it. Because players could be resurrected after death, but the location of their resurrection was not fixed. Unless he found the location of a player's resurrection and then waited there after killing the player, it would be impossible to distinguish. But this matter was not the most important thing now. After this matter was over, Qin Shujian had already planned to try it himself. If the Red Lotus of Purgation could really kill players, then the greatest threat in history could be completely eradicated. Players would die. Then, the player's greatest advantage would be gone in front of him. By then, he would not be afraid no matter how many players there were. Wu and Prefecture. Wu and Marquis Prefecture. Shunhong sat in the main seat. As for the other marquises on his left and right, Marquis Qianshan Gu Changqing, Marquis Bai Yong Zhao Xinghuai, Marquis Luo Yu Du Chengwu, Marquis Nan Feng Zhang Yi. Other than the 5 of them, there was no one else in the hall, not even a guard at the door. Marquis Bei Yun's side is still unwilling to join forces with us? Shunhong tilted his head and asked Zhang Yi. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Yi shook his head and sneered. The Xiao family thinks highly of themselves. I thought Xiao Chengfeng was quite ambitious, but I didn't expect him to be so foolishly loyal. But it doesn't matter if there is one more Marquis Bei Yun or one less. Now that the great Zhao dynasty has suffered heavy losses, we are enough to deal with it. He was the person in charge of contacting the Beiyun prefecture. For more than a month, he had already sent messages to Marquis Bei Yun no less than 5 or 6 times, but he did not even reply once. Not to mention replying to the letter, he didn't even show the slightest bit of movement. He stood erect as if he didn't see anything. As a marquis, Zhang Yi was also a proud person. Marquis Bei Yun did not give him face, so naturally, he was not in a good mood. Du Qingwu sneered. If Xiao Chengfeng is foolishly loyal, then so be it. I'm afraid that Marquis Bei Yun has a bigger plan and wants to take advantage of us. We have to be careful. How dare he? Zhang Yi's face turned cold. He said coldly, Beiyun Prefecture's foundation is the weakest among the 13 prefectures. Xiao Chengfeng may be a powerful figure, but he is not invincible. If he wants to scheme against us alone, he's just digging his own grave. So what if he was a powerful figure? Among the people present, who didn't have the means to deal with mighty figures, to be able to control a prefecture, he was naturally not a simple character. But even so, Zhang Yi was still very cautious about Marquis Bei Yun. No matter what, Marquis Bei Yun was one step ahead of them and had broken through to another level. Powerful or not, the difference was still huge. Shenhong said, since Marquis Bei Yun did not respond, we will ignore him for now. Our biggest opponent now is the great Zhao dynasty. Although the human emperor has fallen, the foundation of thousands of years is still there. There are many powerful figures in the royal family and many in the imperial astronomer. Marquis Qianshan should know this very well. As he spoke, his gaze fell on Gu Chongqing. Not long ago, a great battle had broken out in the Thousand Mountains prefecture. The Lord of the South had joined forces with the powerful figures from the imperial astronomer. It could be said that the battle had been earth-shattering. Gu Chongqing had found a mysterious powerful figure from somewhere. Then, with their support, they had defeated the Lord of the South and the imperial astronomer. They had completely expelled the power of the imperial court from the Thousand Mountains prefecture. As for the mysterious powerful figure, he did not want to talk much about it. But when Shenhong thought about the recent rumors, he had some guesses in his heart. But these things, it was not the time to talk about it, so he turned a blind eye. It was so much so that the other people present also had their own opinions and thoughts regarding this matter. As for Shenhong's words, Gu Chongqing looked calm and did not feel any sense of urgency. He replied calmly, "You have seen the strength of the imperial astronomer with your own eyes. I don't need to repeat myself. The human emperor's fall was too sudden, and the royal family was not prepared. Now is our best chance." Speaking of this, he paused for a moment and looked at the others with a mocking expression. Don't tell me that you have not thought about the throne. Anyway, things have already come to this point. There is no need to think so much. Let's take down the Middle State Prefecture in one go. The rest can be discussed in the future. Gu Chongqing's words echoed in the hall. Shenhong and the others did not feel embarrassed because their thoughts had been exposed. Everyone looked normal. After all, everyone was well aware of why they were determined to rebel. At this time, trying to cover up would only make it more conspicuous. It was completely unnecessary. Zhao Xinghuai, who had been silent, said, "We have already set up a spy in the great Zhao dynasty. When the time comes, it will naturally create an opportunity for us. Shi Yang's methods are not bad, but they are still too weak. After thousands of years as a prince, he can no longer distinguish the big picture. If the great Zhao falls into his hands, it will be destroyed sooner or later." Chapter 461. The great Zhao does not have many soldiers, and most of them are in the hands of Dan Hao and the others. But we killed Luo Jing first and weakened their power. Shenhong continued, looking at the others. Other than the experts of the imperial family and the imperial astronomer, the great Zhao does not have much power. As for the imperial family and the imperial astronomer, there should be powerful people, but there should not be many. With our current power, there should not be much of a problem to deal with them. The Great Zhao's biggest problem right now was the imperial astronomer and the imperial family. The imperial astronomer was mysterious. The imperial family had deep foundations. Not counting these two, the Great Zhao did not have much power left. As for the other officials, most of them were just grass on the top of the wall and would not stand firmly on any side. Also, they had been in charge of their own estates for many years and could not be completely uninvolved in matters of the imperial court. Therefore, in the imperial court, there were also people in their faction. It was just that they were more secretive and were not detected by others. What's the point of thinking so much? Do we still have a choice in the current situation? Du Qingwu did not care, shaking his head. Either we enter or we die. Even if we do not act, when Xiang recovers, he will not give us a way out. The longer this drags on, the more disadvantageous it is for us. Right now, the 5 prefectures have already surrounded the central province. We can just send troops. Who cares if it is the imperial astronomer or the imperial family? If they had the power, they would have destroyed us long ago. Why wait until now? In Du Qingwu's view, if the Great Zhao had the power, how would they have fallen to the current situation? They would have sent an army of experts to destroy them long ago. Falling to the current situation. In the end, the Great Zhao did not have enough power and could not control the overall situation. The 5 prefectures had surrounded the central province. The Great Zhao could only seek help from the other prefectures. But from the current situation, Xiang might not be able to trust the vassals of the other prefectures. Until now, the situation in front of the Great Zhao was a dead end, and there was no need to worry too much. Hearing this, the others were silent for a while. Zhao Xinghuai suddenly laughed. Marquis Luoyue is not wrong. We are thinking too much. What is there to think about in the current situation? The central province prefecture is already surrounded by us. The next step is naturally for the 2 armies to clash and take down the eternal imperial city. What do you guys think of the Inhumans? Zhang Yi suddenly changed the topic to the players. Inhumans are troublesome. Shen Hong's expression was also slightly dignified as he said, however, at this stage, the mutants are not enough to pose a threat to us. However, there are some experts among the mutants that we need to think of a way to suppress. The biggest problem with the Inhumans was that they were immortal. However, there was also a shortcoming, and that was the lack of top-notch experts overseeing it. According to Shen Hong's understanding, at this stage, the strongest among the variant humans was only at the spirit martial realm. There are also some people with wild ambitions, but we must guard against them. However, we must first take down the Great Zhao Empire. It will not be too late to slowly resolve the other problems later. Gu Chongqing smiled meaningfully. After saying this, the other dukes also had different expressions on their faces, but no one spoke again. As for the other questions, after Great Zhao was dealt with, it went without saying what other problems there would be. 3 days later, our army will attack and take down Great Zhao. All right. Soon, Gu Chongqing and the others stood up and returned to their respective residences. In the Thousand Mountains Prefecture, Bu Tianhua said in a low voice, Marquis, although we are working with the other dukes now, after Great Zhao is destroyed, we will definitely have to fight with them. We must guard against them. With the strength of the demon race, can't we deal with them? Of course, we are not afraid of them. However, there are differences between the 2 races. If we attack openly, I'm afraid it will cause more intense resistance. Bu Tianhua revealed a worried expression. Gu Chongqing smiled faintly and said, there is no hurry. The day the imperial city is destroyed will be the day they die. As long as we kill Shen Hong and the others, the rest will have no leader. Naturally, there will be no one who can fight against us. There was only one emperor's throne. It was destined that only one person could sit on it. Although the 5 prefectures were working together now, that was because of the pressure from Great Zhao. Without the pressure from Great Zhao, the 5 prefectures were never true allies. The moment the Great Zhao was destroyed, it would be time for their alliance to split. Gu Chongqing believed. Other than him, the other dukes must be preparing as well. When the time was right, they would be completely exposed and fight for the emperor's throne. Thinking of this, Gu Chongqing looked at Bu Tianhua and said calmly, for some reason, someone leaked the news of the demon saint's appearance. However, This is fine. After all, everyone only thinks that the demon race has produced one demon saint. If the heavenly demon temple can provide a few more demon saints as support, then all the problems will no longer be a problem. I will go back and report this. Bu Tianhua frowned deeply and did not answer directly. It seemed that Gu Chongqing felt that 2 demon saints were too few and hoped that the demon race would send out more forces. This was not a small matter. Now that the demon emperor was dead, the demon saints were the top cultivators of the demon race. The 12 demon saints were the sky. As long as we take down Great Zhao, then I will not go back on my promise to split the world between humans and demons. Gu Chongqing said, in 3 days, the army will attack Middle State Prefecture. I hope that the demon saints will follow the army. The day the imperial city is destroyed is the day Great Zhao falls. It is also the beginning of the collapse of the alliance. At that time, if Shunhong and the others are allowed to leave, there will be a lot of trouble. I think the demon race will not be willing to give up so much and not get the reward they deserve. Bu Tianhua was silent for a while. After a long while, he nodded and said, I understand. I will go back and report to the Heavenly Demon Temple. I will give you an answer then. Okay, I will wait for your good news. Gu Chongqing nodded with a smile on his face. Although the Heavenly Demon Temple already had 2 demon saints, he did not think that 2 demon saints were enough. The marquises all had powerful trump cards. Although the demon saints were powerful, they might not be able to do anything to them. After all, they had thousands of years of accumulation and enjoyed the resources of a prefecture. Even a pig would not be unprepared after such a long time. Moreover, Shunhong and the others were all scheming people. If they revealed their trump cards, it would definitely be shocking. In the Marquis's mansion. Now, Eagle Saint and Ghost Saint lived in seclusion. Most of the time, they were like ordinary people and did not show too much. As for the servants in the Marquis residence, they did not know that the 2 of them were demon saints, let alone that they were powerful demon saints. Luo Feiyu's strength is indeed extraordinary. He is probably at the 6th level of the celestial human realm and close to the half-mighty realm. The Great Zhao's foundation is really deep. Eagle Sage recalled the previous battle, and a grave expression appeared on his face. A half-mighty realm could not make the demon race so cautious. But one had to know. A half-mighty realm was only one of the powerful people that the Great Zhao had nurtured over the years. There were 4 marquises in the Great Zhao, and Luo Feiyu was only one of them. Since the other party was at the 6th level of the celestial human realm, the other marquises would not be much weaker. There might even be almighties. Besides this, there were still powerful people in the imperial family and the mysterious imperial astronomer. The demon emperor established the heavenly demon temple. The human emperor established the imperial astronomer. To a certain extent, the imperial astronomer was a place with the same name as the heavenly demon temple. However, in terms of foundation, the imperial astronomer could not be compared to the heavenly demon temple, but it was not to be underestimated. Hearing this, the ghost sage took a sip of his tea and asked casually, based on your previous battle, what level are the experts from the imperial astronomer at? About the same as Luo Feiyu. They are not almighties. This can't be the true strength of the imperial astronomer. Shi Yingtian spent so much effort to build the imperial astronomer. There must be some almighties overseeing it. It seems that the Great Zhao is hiding something. The ghost saint shook his head and did not care too much. So what if the imperial astronomer had almighties? They could only be at most at the 7th level of the celestial human realm. Before the Great Zhao was established, the demon race ruled the world and the human race could only protect themselves in a corner. The reason for this was because the human race was weak. 10,000 years ago, the human race only had a few almighties supporting them and did not have the qualifications to compete with the demon race. It was not until the rise of the human emperor that the human race had one more powerful person who led the human race to rise and drove the demon race out. However, the human emperor was the strongest in the human race. The rest were weak. More than 6,000 years had passed. For the human race, it was already an incredible thing to be able to produce so many half-step almighties and celestial humans. As for the almighties above them, it was already a miracle that a few of them appeared. The heavenly demon temple had 12 demon saints. This was the accumulation of the demon race for tens of thousands of years. In addition, the demon race's lifespan was much longer than the human race's. 10,000 years ago, the human race did not have many powerful people. The only almighties were the human emperor. Even if the human emperor had tried his best to nurture the human race for thousands of years, how many could he have nurtured in a few thousand years? After all, almighties. They could not be born just by relying on time. In some races, an almighty was considered the almighties of the demon race. There were even some races that did not even have almighties and only relied on a few celestial humans. However, for large races like the human race and the demon race, almighties were not qualified to be called almighties. 2 demon saints are not enough. It seems that Gu Chongqing has a big plan. Could it be that he really wants to bury all his opponents on the day the imperial city is destroyed? The eagle saint's voice was cold. As a demon saint, he had naturally received news of this matter. The ghost saint said, "If Gu Chongqing doesn't have a big plan, why would he cooperate with our race? But it doesn't matter. No matter how big a plan is, he has to have enough power to support it. Otherwise, in the face of absolute power, all plans are just a joke." Now, let's see how the heavenly demon temple responds. The eagle saint slowly shook his head. On the same day, the troops of the various prefectures were mobilized and gathered, causing quite a commotion. Under the situation of besieging the Middle State Prefecture, there were still troops gathered and mobilized. Everyone knew what this meant. In the following 2 days, the 5 prefectures' armies were mobilized and ready for war. As for the imperial court, they also issued several orders to prepare to deal with the 5 prefectures' allied army. These things. As Qin Shujian traveled through the various regions, he also received real-time information. Originally, whether it was the feudal lords or the imperial court, it had nothing to do with him. However, he received another message. Terminate the cooperation. Qin Shujian put down the communication jade talisman in his hand and frowned. The imperial court originally wanted him to kill the demons of the various prefectures and then exchange 5 demons for a spirit stone as a reward. But now, an envoy from the imperial court had come to Liang Mountain again, hoping to terminate this cooperation. To put it bluntly, he wanted him to stop killing evil demons. After receiving this message, Qin Shujian stopped in his tracks and his expression changed. The imperial court has been forced into a desperate situation to make such a decision. What did terminating the cooperation mean? It meant that the imperial court didn't plan to use too much power on the demons. It even meant that they hoped to leave the demon disaster in the various prefectures as a means to restrain the rebel army. One had to know, the demon disaster was no small matter. The great Zhao dynasty was still the ruler of the world in name. With this order, it meant that the other party was prepared to sacrifice the rook to save the king. Xiang was really forced into a corner to make such a decision. However, if he does this, the great Zhao dynasty will lose a lot of people's support. This isn't a wise decision. Qin Shujian put away the communication jade talisman and looked around. When he activated his Dharma eye, he saw that the originally clear sky was now covered in a layer of red clouds. Red clouds to kill. This meant that the heavens and earth were brewing some kind of killing intent. At this moment, Thousand Mountain Prefecture and the other prefectures had their luck rising and turning into auspicious beasts that surrounded the Middle State Prefecture. It was like they were about to explode and rip apart the imperial court's luck. As for where the Middle State Prefecture was, this time, Qin Shujian was smart and didn't look around casually. Last time, he almost died. He had almost killed himself. Although his strength had increased a lot this time, he was not confident that he could protect himself. However, he was also curious about the Middle State Imperial Court's luck. Last time, he only took a quick glance and didn't see many things clearly. Just one look, just one look. If things go wrong, I will stop immediately. Anyway, I was fine last time. This time, I have broken through to the 8th level of the Divine Martial Realm and my strength has increased by several times. I also have a supreme treasure to protect myself, so it shouldn't be a big problem. Qin Shujian kept comforting himself. It was as if a cat was scratching his heart, making it itchy and unbearable. The last time he took a look, He was heavily injured and was blind for a few days. Ever since then, he warned himself not to use his Dharma eye to look around blindly every day. But now, Qin Shujian still couldn't resist the urge to take a look. In the end, he took out the 27 square array discs, and the rank 6 golden lotus and the dustless celestial robe were already in place. Then, he gathered his true essence and completely activated his Dharma eye. The moment his Dharma eye was activated, Qin Shujian took a step into the air and looked directly at the Middle State Prefecture. Boom! Looking out, one could see a vast expanse of yellow clouds. A huge dragon was sleeping in the yellow clouds. An aura that looked down on the world swept out. No matter how the auspicious beasts of the 5 prefectures roared, it had an aura that suppressed everything. When Qin Shujian glanced over, he saw that Qin Shujian's expression had changed. The 10,000 feet long giant dragon suddenly opened its eyes. Its gaze crossed an endless distance and landed on Qin Shujian. When they looked at each other, Qin Shujian felt a sharp pain in his eyes. He had no choice but to close them, not daring to meet its gaze. Roar! An earth-shattering roar shook his soul to the point that his soul trembled violently. A terrifying force came crashing down from the heavens, as if to completely destroy Qin Shujian. There was no hesitation. He immediately used the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth, then summoned the rank 6 golden lotus to block the attack. Then, he used the dustless celestial robe to weaken it further. Until the very end, Qin Shujian took out the blood of 1,000 mountains. Using this 3-sealed Tao artifact as the foundation, he used the first severing. This force was invisible and intangible, and it acted directly on the spirit god. Therefore, using the spirit severing to deal with it was just right. Boom! When the 2 attacks collided, there was an earth-shattering explosion. The aftermath of the destruction spread in all directions. At the same time, Qin Shujian felt the acupoints in his body tremble violently. His blood boiled like magma, and the power of the ancient immortal body was completely activated. This attack, it directly triggered his physical body's instinctive counterattack. After a long time, Qin Shujian grunted. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and he retreated. However, the force finally disappeared. So strong. Qin Shujian was shocked. At this moment, the power of his Dharma eye disappeared. He looked in the direction of the Central State Prefecture. There were no more yellow clouds or giant dragons. Compared to the last time, when he only took a quick glance, he was directly hit by the fate. This time, he was obviously much better. Although he was still injured, it was only a minor injury. It was not a big deal. What really shocked Qin Shujian was, the great Zhao dynasty had already fallen to such a state, but the fate of the nation was still so vast. It could be seen that the great Zhao dynasty's foundation had reached a shocking level. The fate of the origin sect was also at its peak. However, compared to the great Zhao dynasty, it paled in comparison. There was no comparison at all. Is this the fate of the imperial court? Qin Shujian took a few deep breaths. He did not see it clearly the last time, but this time, he saw the whole picture. He had originally guessed. The imperial court could be a 9th-grade force. Now, it seemed that he was even more certain of his guess. Only a 9th-grade force could do such a thing. It could directly turn an ordinary divine martial artist into ashes with just a glance of fate. Or else, if the great Zhao dynasty was not a 9th-grade force, then how terrifying would the legendary 9th-grade force be? Subsequently, Qin Shujian glanced at his own fate. At this moment, the light green fate was slightly thinner. It was faintly showing signs of falling. Seeing this, his face darkened even more. To take a peek at the fate of others without permission, one had to pay a heavy price. However, a normal fate backlash would not affect one's body. However, the great Zhao's national fate was different. Not only did the backlash of the providence injure Qin Shujian, but even the providence on his body was weakened. However, it was worth rejoicing over. Although his luck had dropped by 1 point, it was still in the green stage. With the power of the origin sect, as the head of the origin sect, the fate that had been weakened would slowly recover under the support of the origin sect. This time, Qin Shujian understood another thing. The Dharma I really could not be used carelessly. If he took a glance and his chi and blood were to be weakened by a few levels, then he would not even be able to cry. Curiosity killed the cat. This sentence cannot be faked. Qin Shujian shook his head and sighed. Everything was fine, but he had to take a look at the fate of the great Zhao dynasty. However, from the current fate of the nation, the imperial court should have other trump cards in hand. There would not be any problems in the short term. As for the message from the imperial court, he directly ignored it. Now was not the same as before. After discovering the ability of the Red Lotus of Purgation, the spirit stones given by the imperial court could only be considered as a bonus. Although it was not dispensable, compared to the gains of the demons, it was not much. If the imperial court terminated the cooperation, at most they would take less spirit stones. Regarding this, Qin Shujian did not have any objections. At most, he would just purely do voluntary labor. Anyway, it was not a big deal. He took a look at his attributes, as well as his source of life and luck points. Qin Shujian murmured, I am now in the 8th level of the divine martial realm and have more than 5,000 luck points. It is just that my source of life is a little less. In another 2 or 3 months, I should be able to reach the peak of the divine martial realm or directly become a diviner. The normal time was more than 30 years. Now, it only needed 2 or 3 months. Naturally, he would not mind that it was too long. If it was someone else, not to mention 2 or 3 months, even if they could become a diviner in 20 or 30 years, it would be enough to make them go crazy. He simply adjusted his breathing on the spot. Qin Shujian took out another pill and swallowed it, completely recovering the injuries in his body. Shortly after, he directly flew into the air and headed in another direction. Now, the great Zhao directly took out their forces and no longer cared about the demon disaster. As for the various lords, they were obviously eager to take down the Middle State Prefecture and did not put too much effort into the demon disaster. As a result, 90% of the people fighting against the demon disaster were players. It could be said that the demons released by the players were still dealt with by the players in the end. It was just that in this process, many people gained benefits. However, it was still the same sentence. Although there were many players, there was a lack of top experts. Although there were many true martial realm players, there was a chance to reach the peak of the true martial realm and even the spirit martial realm players. As a result, in some places, the players did not have enough strength. When fighting against the demon disaster, it was a little difficult. As a result, the demon disaster in some places had already shown signs of going out of control when Qin Shujian arrived, just in time to see the demon disaster break through the players' blockade and spread to other places. As for the demons, they also left the Broken Land and headed to other areas. In the eyes of the players, the demons were like big bosses that were hard to deal with. If one wanted to deal with a boss of this level, unless it was an elite team that did not care about casualties, they would have a chance. Or else, it would be impossible for normal teams to deal with them. Chapter 462. What can we do? The boss is too strong. We can't stop it at all. A female player retreated as she fought. Even with her physical invulnerability state strength, she couldn't stop the endless waves of demons. Not to mention, it was the mountain-like evil spirit that was approaching step by step. Now that the demons had broken through the blockade, the situation was out of control. Originally, the players formed a large circle to encircle these things in an orderly manner. As long as they didn't go too deep, there wouldn't be any danger. But it was different now. The situation was out of control. The blockade that the players maintained was gone. Under the surging demons, many players were trapped. For a moment, the death rate of the players increased greatly. Retreat! Wu Luoling shouted. The long whip in her hand moved like a silver snake. It instantly pierced through the skulls of 2 skeletons and extinguished the soul flames inside. Then, looking at the demons that were moving toward them, she chose to retreat immediately. It wasn't that she didn't want to kill this boss. On the forums, there were many players posting videos and posts, all of which contained information about the evil demons. Since the start of the demons had been synonymous with invincibility at the beginning. Now, they were gradually conquered by some powerful player teams. However, Compared to the large number of demons that broke out of the seal, the demons that were conquered by the player teams were only a small part of the total. Moreover, every team that defeated the demons had to pay a heavy price. Most importantly, the demons didn't seem to drop many things. Most of them only gave experience points and mission rewards. If they were lucky enough, the demons would carry weapons. Some players guessed that the weapons could be dropped. It just needed a certain probability. But so far, no one had succeeded. Conquering demons. It was more to make a name for themselves. Of course, the mission rewards were also generous. But after deducting the losses, there wasn't much to be gained. But no matter what, killing demons was very difficult. Very difficult. Someone had once calculated that if they wanted to defeat Sinister, they would need at least 1,000 physical invulnerability experts and above. Only then would it be possible. And it was under the premise that they didn't take into account the losses. So, although Wu Luoling had the idea of killing the boss, she didn't have the courage to put it into action. Until now, the team had spent a lot of time and money on nurturing. If they were wiped out by the evil demons, their overall strength would drop by a level. This was not an easy thing for her to accept. When Wu Luoling gave the order to retreat, the other players in the team also gave up on their opponents and retreated in an orderly manner. It was worth mentioning. All the players in the team were female. There were no males. Leader, should we contact the others and kill this boss? Wu Luoling remained unmoved. Glancing at the petite girl beside her, she shook her head and said, "Who can we contact? Evil demons basically won't give us anything good. So what's the point of killing it? Let's retreat first." When the others saw this, they didn't say anything else. After all, Wu Luoling was the team leader. There were many things that they had to listen to her. Boom. With a single slap, he killed several players who were as small as ants. Demonic Lord Ming Luo drove all the demonic disaster to invade other regions. It was unknown when it started. The forces that had besieged him were greatly weakened, giving him the opportunity to expand to other regions. At first, Demonic Lord Ming Luo thought that the other party was plotting something, so he didn't do anything. He just silently absorbed the energy provided by the demonic disaster and gradually recovered from his injuries. To be able to be suppressed in the seal, this proved that he had been defeated by a strong person before. And in the seal, there was no chance for Demonic Lord Ming Luo to recover from his injuries. This could only be done after the seal was broken. But after his injuries recovered, Demonic Lord Ming Luo realized that the humans didn't do anything, but the forces that besieged him were further weakened. At this point, he couldn't be bothered to find out if there was really a conspiracy and directly drove the demonic disaster to attack. The result was unexpectedly smooth. The blockade that suppressed the demonic disaster was broken through without much effort. As the demonic disaster spread out, Demonic Lord Ming Luo was also a little excited. The reason why the evil demons were eager to go to the Greater Thousand World was, on one hand, because the demonic abyss was too lonely. On the other hand, it was for the flesh and blood of the living beings in the Greater Thousand World. Evil demons were born to be celestial beings. However, it would not be easy to improve on this foundation. Only by devouring the flesh and blood of living beings could their cultivation level increase rapidly. This was also the reason why the evil demons were obsessed with creating demonic disasters. Because was to plunder enough flesh and blood. Kill. Listen to my command. Kill to your heart's content. Demonic Lord Ming Luo laughed wildly. In an instant, demonic chi spread out in all directions, as if it was the end of the world. You look very happy? Who? Demonic Lord Ming Luo's laughter stopped abruptly. The moment he turned his head, he only saw a huge fist, directly occupying his entire line of sight. Boom! A terrifying force exploded. Demonic Lord Ming Luo's face exploded with blood, and his body was also bombarded backward. A sudden change of events. Demonic Lord Ming Luo was caught off guard, and it also made the other players stunned on the spot. What happened? Many people weren't clear about the situation. But looking at the sudden appearance of the tens of feet tall body, some people had doubts in their eyes, while others had a thoughtful look. Demonic Lord Ming Luo was injured in one blow, and immediately took the opportunity to pull apart the distance between them. Then, demonic chi rolled back, healing the injuries on his face. Immediately after, he looked angrily at the person in front of him and shouted sternly, "Who are you? How dare you sneak attack me?" "The person who will kill you," Qin Shujian sneered. In the next moment, he had already closed in on him and attacked again. The universe skylock filled the sky. A terrifying force was revived. In the face of this power, demonic Lord Ming Luo was shocked. Without thinking, he attacked. Boom! Due to the difference in strength between both parties, demonic Lord Ming Luo was at a disadvantage after just exchanging blows. Lawful embodiment of heaven and earth, coupled with the primordial indestructible body. In terms of strength, Qin Shujian was confident that not many people in the same realm could be his match. And in the true dominion, unless an almighty attacked, no one would be inferior to him. Originally, he hadn't planned to come here. After all, there was another place that was closer. However, because the demon disaster had spread out, Qin Shujian had sensed the demonic chi from afar. Thus, he had changed his direction at the last minute and come over to take a look. In the end, he happened to meet demonic Lord Ming Luo. There was no need to say anything else. In Qin Shujian's eyes, any evil devil was a walking treasure. If he hadn't met demonic Lord Ming Luo, it would have been fine. However, since he had met him, there was no way he could ignore him. When he looked over with his Dharma eye, the other party was a fifth-stage heaven being evil devil. To Qin Shujian, this was a very lucrative character. Fifth-stage heaven being. At least 200 million life sources. Sisterling, what should we do now? A young girl suddenly didn't know what to do as she looked at the scene before her. Originally, they had been pressured by the evil devil. They had no choice but to retreat. However, now that an even more powerful character had arrived, it became a problem whether to retreat or not. Regarding Qin Shujian's words, many people recognized him. However, after he executed the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth, he looked somewhat unfamiliar. However, very soon, some people recognized Qin Shujian's identity. During this period of time, this cold mountain stronghold master had been killing evil devils all over the world. This was not a secret. There were also many players who complained about the fact that they were being targeted for kill stealing. Looking at the scene before her, Wu Luoling's pretty face hesitated for a moment. Then, she gritted her teeth and said, "While the boss is occupied by Cold Mountain Stronghold Master, let's kill the other monsters with all our might. Find another opportunity and see if we can snatch the boss." Ah, snatch the boss. Some people were shocked by her bold decision. Wu Luoling rolled her eyes and said, "Cold Mountain Stronghold Master has snatched the boss from other players many times. Why is he the only one who can snatch the boss and we can't? At most, we'll just die once. As long as we snatch the boss's last hit, the quest reward alone will be enough to make up for our losses." In her opinion, no matter how famous Qin Shujian was, it didn't matter. In any case, snatching the boss depended on the strength of both parties. Moreover, the other party wasn't a good person. There was no rule that stated that he could snatch from others, and others couldn't snatch from him. However, although Wu Luoling had the idea of snatching the boss, she also knew that it wouldn't be an easy task. Qin Shujian's strength was especially strong. They only had one chance. Once they failed, it would be impossible to snatch the boss again. At this thought, Wu Luoling dealt with the devil disaster skeletons beside her while slowly leading the team towards the battlefield. However, she didn't want to attract other people's attention. The team's advance was less deliberate. Meanwhile, the battle between Qin Shujian and Demon Lord Ming Luo was still ongoing. As a fifth-stage heaven-human expert, Ming Luo had recovered completely. The strength he could unleash in the true dominion was not weak. Even though he wasn't as strong as a cultivator who had condensed 4 universal heavenly locks, he wasn't too far off. Therefore, he was at a disadvantage. In the face of Qin Shujian's fierce attacks, Demon Lord Ming Luo was still able to maintain the situation. However, he was able to maintain the situation. The scales of victory were tilting towards Qin Shujian at a speed visible to the naked eye. Boom! Thunder burst forth. Qin Shujian took out the 1,000 mountain blood. The 3-seal Dao artifact exploded instantly. Coupled with the spirit-severing martial art, he slashed out a terrifying saber move. Saber/physical body. Heart/spiritual spirit. The first spirit-severing saber move was to turn the spiritual spirit into a saber to slash the opponent's spiritual spirit. Now, coupled with the Thousand Mountain Blood, the power of this move merged with the Tao artifact. In an instant, the monstrous fiend Qi was torn apart. Demon Lord Ming Luo struck out with his finger. A vast finger aura shot out, but was destroyed by the Thunder Saber aura. In the next second, the Saber aura landed. As Demon Lord Ming Luo's physical body crumbled, he felt a sharp pain in his mind, forcing him to scream. The devil Qi could heal the injuries of the physical body, but it couldn't heal the injuries of the spirit god. This saber move directly injured both his physical body and spiritual spirit. To this, all Qin Shujian had to do was to follow up the victory. Although the two-stage saber intent was not at the level of simplifying, his saber moves were extremely exquisite. Demon Lord Ming Luo had almost no power to resist and fell into a passive situation. The saber slashed out. His physical body was torn apart. As blood flowed, the Fiend Qi constantly repaired the physical body. But no matter how the Fiend Qi recovered, there was no way to reverse the situation. Soon, Demon Lord Ming Luo was seriously injured and on the verge of death. Now, Wu Luoling, who had been paying close attention to the battle, saw that Demon Lord Ming Luo was seriously injured and on the verge of death. She did not have time to be shocked by Qin Shujian's strength and rushed forward. At the same time, she took out a jade talisman and crushed it with force. Crack! Like a bolt from the blue, purple lightning shot out from the jade talisman and blasted toward Demon Lord Ming Luo like a rainbow. This jade talisman, Wu Luoling had completed a difficult hidden mission and obtained it as a reward. As for the function of the jade talisman, it contained the power of a god martial arts realm attack. And thunder was pure yang, which was the best way to restrain demons. Therefore, a jade talisman comparable to a god martial arts realm attack was enough to kill the seriously injured Demon Lord Ming Luo. A sudden attack. Before Demon Lord Ming Luo could react, Qin Shujian on the side was the first to come back to his senses. Kill Steal. Seeing that attack, this was the first thought that came to his mind. Suddenly, a surge of endless anger surged from Qin Shujian's heart. Kill Steal. What he, Sect Master Qin, hated the most in his life was people who stole other people's kill. Swish. Qin Shujian's saber, which was originally aimed at Demon Lord Ming Luo, changed its direction and slashed towards the purple thunderbolt. The terrifying saber aura instantly destroyed the purple lightning. It was not over yet. After the saber aura destroyed the purple lightning, it continued to slash toward Wu Luoling's direction. The saber aura that was hundreds of feet long fell. Everything within a radius of a few feet was completely destroyed. After venting the anger in his heart, Qin Shujian threw away the array disc and used the grand array to cover himself and Demon Lord Ming Luo. On the other side, in the resurrection point, until now, Wu Luoling had not completely recovered from the saber that was deeply imprinted in her mind. It was not that she had never seen a powerful NPC. When she was completing that hidden mission, she had met an extremely powerful NPC. In order to complete the mission, Wu Luoling used all her trump cards. But, now that she was facing Qin Shujian, she realized that there was always someone better than her. That NPC expert she met before was nothing in front of this Cold Mountain Gang master. That saber's brilliance. It directly shattered Wu Luoling's heart. The imprint of that saber could not be erased no matter how hard she tried. She had even temporarily forgotten about the loss she had suffered this time. Sister Ling. Captain, what's wrong? Until the voice beside her woke Wu Luoling up from her daze. She looked at the others. She took a deep breath and shook her head. It's nothing. I was careless this time. I did not expect the Cold Mountain Gang master to be so powerful. At this moment, only then did Wu Luoling remember the loss this time. Her heart skipped a beat and she could not breathe. Loss. Huge loss. That jade talisman of the god martial realm was very valuable. And Qin Shujian's final saber attack had almost wiped out her entire team. Their collective realm had dropped by one level. This price was simply too great. Central State Prefecture, Imperial City. In the back garden of the Imperial Palace, there was a pond decorated with lotus flowers. Below, koi fish would occasionally jump out of the water and then disappear into the pond. Xiang held a handful of bait in one hand and used his other hand to pick up some of it and sprinkle it into the pond. Instantly, it attracted a group of fish to gather. Your Majesty, ever since we diverted our forces to suppress the demon disaster, many places have lost control of the situation and the demon disaster has spread. If this continues, I'm afraid there will be no end to the trouble. An old eunuch stood behind Xiang. His body was slightly bowed as he reported some matters. Out of control? Xiang shook his head and laughed, but he did not stop feeding the fish. In your opinion, how much more out of control can the current situation get? Although the situation is tense, there will be a time to resolve it. Resolving it is easier said than done. Xiang's tone was calm, but there was coldness in his eyes as he looked at the pond. Now that the rebel alliance is about to invade our central state prefecture and reach the imperial city, how do you think the current situation can be resolved? The old eunuch was speechless. At this moment, Xiang did not stop talking. His voice gradually turned into a low growl. The imperial court has always treated them well. For thousands of years, they were given high positions and land to sit on, blessing the younger generation. But now, look at how they are treating me. Betrayal, rebellion. They are no longer satisfied with the position of a duke. What these people want is the entire world. What they want is my head. Tell me, what else can I do in this situation? Xiang suddenly turned around and stared at the old eunuch with a pair of cold eyes as he questioned sternly. Hearing this, the old eunuch could only lower his head in silence. A moment later, Xiang suppressed the anger in his heart and turned around again. He repeated his actions. You have been by my father's side for thousands of years. You should know a lot of things, but even you don't know what to do in the current situation. I wanted to suppress the demon disaster and return peace to the world, but these rebels are not willing to do so. Since they are forcing me, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Only by erecting the title of Great Zhao will the world have meaning. Otherwise, I don't care about this world. So what if they were demons? In Shi Yang's eyes, none of this was important. If he could not even keep his throne, then he would rather drag the world down with him. The ruler of a fallen country was destined to go down in history and infamy. Xiang did not mind adding a few more stains to his reputation in the future. So, that was why he directly withdrew his troops and no longer cared about the demon disaster. If the rebellion could be quelled, then he would naturally be able to free up his hands and destroy all the demons. But if he could not quell the rebellion, then there was nothing to say. At most, he would fight to the death. If I can't have it, then no one else can either. Xinhong, Gu Changqing, Zhang Yi, Zhao Xinghuai, Du Qinggu, you all deserve to die. Xiang murmured. His murderous intent had accumulated to a very high level. Boom! A terrifying aura spread out from his body. In an instant, all the koi fish in the pond were crushed into minced meat by this power. The originally clear pond water had turned blood red. As for the servants beside him, their bodies directly exploded under this aura, turning into a bloody mist that scattered across the sky. Only the old eunuch's body emitted a subtle wave of energy that blocked this aura. Your Majesty, please calm down. Quell my anger. I will naturally quell my anger. As long as all the traitors are killed, that will be enough. Xiang also withdrew his aura at this time, and a cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. As for the bloody scene around him, he simply glanced at it. Then, the old eunuch waved his hand, and a gust of wind appeared out of thin air, erasing all traces. Even the blood in the pond was gone. Instead, it was replaced by clear pond water. Let's find a time to raise some fish here. Otherwise, an empty pond will be a little ugly. After Xiang finished speaking, he had already walked away. Yes, the old eunuch bowed and accepted the order, then followed behind Xiang and left. At the same time, the aura that had just erupted also alarmed the experts who were hiding in the palace. However, after these people did not notice anything unusual, they all regained their calm. Not long after Shi Yang left, a guard immediately rushed over. The moment he saw Shi Yang, he knelt down on one knee. "Your Majesty, the rebels have attacked the Central State Prefecture. They're here." Shi Yang's fingers that were tucked in his sleeves trembled slightly, and the expression on his face turned cold. The rebels had attacked the Central State Prefecture. This was something that he had long expected. In these few days, the 5 prefectures had been mobilizing their armies. The news that they had stationed troops at the border of the Central State Prefecture was not a secret. Even the commoners knew about this news. It was impossible that the imperial court did not know about it at all. However, even though this was something that he had long prepared for, when it really happened, it still made his heart tremble, and he felt a great pressure. However, Shi Yang did not reveal any of this. Instead, he quietly looked at the guard and said, "Tell me what exactly happened." The rebels from the 5 prefectures, Nanfeng, Baiyong, Qianshan, Wuhan, and Luoyu, have divided into 3 armies. A total of 70 million troops have officially crossed the border and are heading towards the Central State Prefecture. The guard's voice trembled slightly. 70 million troops. Shi Yang took a deep breath, then suddenly laughed. They've really invested a lot. This 70 million troops are probably the elites of the 5 prefectures. They're not afraid that they'll all die in our Central State Prefecture. At the end, his eyes were frighteningly cold. Then, Shi Yang ordered, "Immediately gather the officials for a meeting. I'll wait for them in the hall. If anyone doesn't arrive within an hour, they'll be treated as rebels and punished." "Yes." Chapter 463. Rumble. An immeasurable army was besieging a city. A dense rain of arrows was constantly thrown toward the city. It was just that the defense array formation rose, blocking the rain of arrows outside. Kill. Kill. The first person to climb the city wall will be heavily rewarded. With a heavy reward, there would naturally be brave men. Instantly, the siege became even more intense. Block them all. The imperial court's reinforcements will arrive in a flash. The rebels can't break the city. Fang Jin stood on the city wall and looked down at the dense army below. He raised his arms and shouted to raise the morale. In his line of sight, he could also see the flags raised by the enemy. The Southwind Army. The Fallen Moon Army. This was the rebel alliance of the Southwind Prefecture and the Fallen Moon Prefecture. There was no need to say how strong they were. Fortunately, the imperial court had already made preparations when the rebels gathered their troops. Therefore, the cities bordering the rebels were heavily guarded and built like iron buckets. They did not give the rebels a chance to break into the city at all. However, Fang Jin looked at the dense army. It was impossible to estimate how many people there were. He was not very confident about whether they could hold their ground. The Central State Prefecture has not experienced war for thousands of years. Suddenly, he sighed with emotion. The Central State Prefecture had not experienced war for thousands of years. Many of the soldiers here had not experienced the baptism of war. Although they had all kinds of resources, in reality, they might not be as good as the elites of other prefectures. Based on the current situation, although Fang Jin was worried, he did not lose his composure. What he really cared about was the expert behind the 2 prefectures. At this moment, the storage ring on Fang Jin's finger heated up. He immediately took out a communication jade talisman. His divine consciousness landed on it, and the information in the jade talisman was extracted. Bang! He squeezed his palm hard, and the jade talisman suddenly shattered. However, Fang Jin did not care at all. Instead, he stood there in a daze. He was obviously shocked by the news. 70 million soldiers. The rebels will not stop until they take down the Central State Prefecture. After receiving this news, his heart was under a great deal of pressure. 70 million soldiers. What kind of concept was this? Currently, there were less than 1 million gold coins in the city. Although it was impossible for all 70 million soldiers to be here, even a third of them would be enough to make him suffer. Send a message to the imperial court immediately and ask them to send reinforcements as soon as possible. Fang Jin shouted after recovering from his shock. When the deputy general beside him heard this, He immediately accepted the order and left. Even though he had a city to defend and 1,000,000 soldiers under his command, Fang Jin did not feel safe at all. This time, the rebels had come with the intention of occupying the central state prefecture and destroying the imperial city. Under such circumstances, the other party definitely wouldn't leave after a simple fight. It would definitely be a tough battle. Thinking of this, Fang Jin immediately called for the second deputy general and ordered, immediately issue a mission to gather the Inhumans in the city to help defend the city. Also, pay close attention to any movements in the city. Anyone who dares to take advantage of this opportunity to cause trouble will be killed without exception. This subordinate obeys. Go. Fang Jin's expression was solemn as he watched the deputy general's departing figure. Only then did he calm down a little. Using the Inhumans to defend the city, it was no longer a secret. For the Inhumans who were immortal and indestructible, as long as they were given enough benefits, nothing else would be a problem. As for the unrest in the city, those who dared to cause trouble at this time were undoubtedly rebels and traitors. No matter where this was, it was a serious crime to be beheaded. Quick! A beam of cold light shot down from the sky and directly bombarded the city defense array. The terrifying power caused the array to shake slightly, but it did not shatter. Fang Jin, do you dare to fight? At this moment, a person flew into the air and stopped 300 feet away from the city. His voice directly passed through the city defense array and spread throughout the city. Hearing this, Fang Jin was unmoved. He sneered and said, "If you want to fight, you can wait until you have the chance to come in. I didn't expect you to be such a coward. I was wrong about you. Haha, if you have the guts, come up to the city. If I don't beat you until you call me father, then consider it my loss. If you don't dare to come over, then hurry up and get lost. Don't fly so high and be an eyesore to me." Fang Jin's expression of disdain made the cultivator so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. Unless there was something wrong with his brain, he would not leave the city and fight under such circumstances. Moreover, Fang Jin was certain. As soon as he left the city, the experts lying in ambush around him might swarm him. At that time, whether or not he could return alive would be a problem. The most important thing now was to defend the city. As long as he could defend the city, the other problems would no longer be a problem. However, if he caused the city to fall because of his problems, beheading would be considered a light punishment. If things went wrong, he might even implicate 9 generations of his family. Fang Jin, you talk too much. Fang Jin did not wait for the cultivator to finish speaking. He directly took out a bow and an arrow from his storage ring. Then, he drew in a huge amount of spiritual energy and shot a shocking arrow. The arrow caused the void to buzz. The cultivator's expression changed. Without thinking, he struck out with his palm. The normal energy palm grew 10 times larger in the wind. Then, it collided with the arrow. Under the powerful force, the arrow was directly shattered. However, the cultivator was also forced by the arrow and had no choice but to descend. Peace and quiet. Fang Jin put down his arm that was holding the longbow, and a smile appeared on his face. As the lord of a city, how could he not be proficient in archery? Unfortunately, the bow in his hand was not a Dao artifact. Otherwise, the arrow just now would have taught the other party a lesson. However, even so, when the others on the city walls saw their city lord shoot down the cultivator with a single arrow, they cheered loudly, "All hail the city lord." This arrow also inspired the hearts of the people. Fang Jin's strength is not bad. In the rebel army's camp, Du Qingwu saw this scene and smiled faintly. No matter what, Fang Jin is a talent personally promoted by the human emperor. Although others think it's a waste of his talent to guard a city as a heavenly being, it's precisely because the human emperor values him. It won't be easy to destroy this city. Zhang Yi shook his head and explained truthfully. This was one of the gates to the Middle Province Prefecture. Its defenses were naturally strong. However, if they took down this city, then the army would have a chance to march straight in without encountering too many obstacles. The Middle Province Prefecture had such a layout. Perhaps the human emperor back then had never thought that there would be a day when an army would be able to reach this step. Du Qingwu said, This city protection formation is not simple. It was at least made by a second-stage Grandmaster. Even if you and I were to attack, we might not be able to destroy it. Second-stage Grandmaster. Its power was not something a first-stage Grandmaster could compare to. Second-stage Grandmaster. The Great Zhao's foundation is still as deep as ever. Zhang Yi sighed and then said, however, in front of our army, even if it's a second-stage Grandmaster, what can it do? If there are no reinforcements within 2 days, this city will definitely be destroyed. The Great Zhao's reinforcements should be arriving soon. Even if the reinforcements arrive, they will only be able to hold on for a few more days. What's the use? Zhang Yi was disdainful of this. This time, the 5 prefectures' army would not give up until they took down the imperial city. An army of 70 million was already the elite of the 5 prefectures. In order to ensure the supply of food, other than the storage rings, more food was still being sent over. This time, they were already prepared to fight a long war. After all, the Central State Prefecture was the foundation of the Great Zhao. Thousands of years of accumulation was definitely not simple. Whether it was Zhang Yi, Du Chengwu, or the other marquises, they had never thought of taking down the entire Central State Prefecture in such a short time. What they needed to do was to press on and not give the Great Zhao a chance to breathe. As long as they could do this, it would be enough. As for taking down the imperial city, it was just a matter of time. Pass down my orders. The army will continue to attack and use up the enemy's stamina. We will not give them any chance to breathe. Also, pay close attention to the movements of the Great Zhao's reinforcements. If there are any abnormalities, immediately report to me. Zhang Yi ordered calmly. The general at the side immediately bowed and accepted the order. Very soon, message after message was passed down. Not long later, the army's momentum became even more fierce. At this time, after the city issued the mission, players had already started to accept it. These kinds of city defense missions usually had generous rewards. Especially now that the Great Zhao was facing a life and death situation, they would not be stingy with these resources. For the same city defense mission, the rewards that Fang Jin gave were at least double the market price. This way, there were naturally countless players who accepted the mission. For them, although it was easy to die in a city defense mission, as long as they were careful, the probability of dying was very small. At the very least, compared to the rewards, this little risk was worth taking. For a time, a large number of players appeared on the city walls. With the appearance of these players, they replaced the positions of the exhausted or injured soldiers and became the main force in the fight against the rebel thieves. Looking at the movement on the city walls, Zhang Yi, Du Chengwu, and the others frowned slightly. Players? From the outside, there was no difference between the players and the locals. But in reality, the way these players did things was fundamentally different from the locals. These differences, even if one looked at them from afar, they could tell. Zhang Yi had guessed that Fang Jin would mobilize players to defend the city. However, when this scene really happened, his expression became more serious. Players who could not die or be destroyed. They were indeed the best main force in battle. However, whether it was Nanfeng Prefecture or Fallen Moon Prefecture, it was impossible for them to mobilize players to attack the Middle State Prefecture, because there was still a devil disaster raging in their headquarters. On the surface, the various vassals did not seem to care about the devil disaster and directly sent troops to attack when the imperial court was suppressing the devil disaster. But in reality, whether it was Zhang Yi, Du Chengwu, or the other vassals, it was impossible for them to really ignore the devil disaster. Although they took the opportunity to attack Dezhao, at the same time, they issued a mission to mobilize players to suppress the spread of the devil disaster. The demons were released by the players. Then the devil disaster would be dealt with by the players. Even if the players' strength was not enough to completely deal with the devil disaster, it was enough to suppress it. All they needed was a little time. A little time to destroy Dezhao. As long as Dezhao was destroyed, they could turn around and clean up the devil disaster. The premise was, at that time, the devil disaster had not spread to a certain scale. In the city, the teleportation gate flashed continuously. The first to appear was a middle-aged man in a light golden robe with a dignified appearance. General Ming Yuan, Dan Hao. The moment Dan Hao appeared, there was already a general waiting there. This subordinate greets General Dan. How is the situation in the city now? Dan Hao asked in a low voice. Now, the sounds of killing had already covered the entire city. Even if one was in the teleportation gate, they could still feel the chilling aura. Hearing this, that person respectfully reported, "The city lord is currently on the city wall supervising the battle. Now, he has already mobilized the players in the city to help defend the city. However, there are still some disturbances in the city, and he has already sent troops to suppress them." Disturbances? Dan Hao's face was filled with killing intent as he coldly said, "At this time, those who still dare to cause trouble are no different from rebelling." At this time, the teleportation gate flashed again, and many generals with powerful auras appeared. Seeing this, Dan Hao ordered, "Chen Quan, Li Yi, take a group of people and kill all the disturbances in the city." This subordinate obeys. The two generals cupped their hands and accepted the order. Then, they took a group of soldiers who were teleported over and walked towards the city. To this, Dan Hao was not too worried. Both of them were generals under his command and were experts who had reached the late stage of the divine martial realm. They were enough to wipe out everything in the city. Subsequently, Dan Hao took a step forward and disappeared on the spot. In the next moment, on the city wall, Fang Jin seemed to have noticed something. When he turned his head, he immediately cupped his hands and said, "Greetings, General Dan. How is the situation now?" Dan Hao waved his hand, indicating that he did not need to be so polite. In his sight, he could see the dense army in front of him, constantly charging towards the city. Arrows were densely packed like rain, shooting on the city defense formation. After the formation was activated, it also consumed energy to maintain its operation. Especially when it was attacked, it would consume more energy. What the rebels were doing now was also to consume the city defense formation's energy. That was why they were constantly attacking to consume it. Fang Jin said, "Now that we've mobilized the players to defend the city, it won't be a big problem in the short term. However, I'm more worried about Zhang Yi and Du Chengwu." No matter what, Zhang Yi and Du Chengwu were still dukes of a prefecture. Those who could be dukes of a prefecture were at least experts above the 5th level of the celestial being realm. Among them, the outstanding ones were like Marquis Baiyun Xiao Chengfeng, who directly advanced to the level of a mighty figure. Zhang Yi, Du Chengwu, I'd like to compete with them and see how strong they are. A cold light burst out from Dan Hao's eyes. Especially Zhang Yi, he had already made up his mind to kill him. As one of the 5 great generals, although he did not have a good relationship with Luo Jing, General Ping Shi, they were colleagues who had worked together for thousands of years. Now that Luo Jing had died in Zhang Yi's hands, this grudge must be avenged. If Zhang Yi had killed Luo Jing fair and square, it would have been fine. Luo Jing could only say that his skills were inferior. However, the other party used despicable means and joined forces with Shun Hong to kill Luo Jing. In this way, things were different again. "Zhang Yi, do you dare to come out and fight?" Dan Hao suddenly flew into the air. His pair of tiger eyes seemed to pierce through the void and landed directly in the middle army tent. Dan Hao, seeing the person who flew into the air, Zhang Yi and Du Chengwu's expressions changed slightly. Dan Hao was the leader of the 5 great generals. In terms of strength, this General Ming Yuan was the most unfathomable. Subsequently, Du Chengwu's expression returned to normal. He turned his head to look at Zhang Yi and said with a smile, "Dan Hao is not weak. Marquis Nanfeng, do you have the confidence to deal with him?" "Humph. How could a mere Dan Hao be a match for this Marquis?" Zhang Yi sneered. In the next second, he had already left the tent and arrived above the battlefield. That soaring killing intent did not affect him in the slightest. "Dan Hao, Luo Jing is already dead. Are you in a hurry to go down and accompany him? It's just using some despicable means. Zhang Yi, you're really getting worse and worse. No wonder the previous Marquis Nanfeng was unwilling to pass the position to you. It's a waste for the Nanfeng mansion to fall into your hands." Dan Hao's eyes flashed with a cold light as he said with a mocking expression. Hearing this, Zhang Yi's face suddenly turned ugly. His expression was cold. The winner takes all. I only care about the result. What's the point of the process? Dan Hao's words had already poked his sore spot. When the previous Marquis Nanfeng was still alive, the candidate for the position was actually not him, but another genius disciple. As for the end, why did the position fall into Zhang Yi's hands? This was a little thought-provoking. Even if these things didn't need to be deliberately publicized, the upper echelons were very clear about it. In Zhang Yi's eyes, what happened back then was a taboo that could not be mentioned. Now that Dan Hao mentioned it directly in front of him, it was no different from publicly slapping him in the face. Boom! Zhang Yi directly struck out with his palm. The palm energy covered the sky as if it could cover the entire city. A great cultivator at the 6th level of the heaven-human realm was close to the level of a half-step almighty. The moment he struck out, the weather changed. Dan Hao's expression was normal as he flicked his finger. The vast finger energy shattered the air and collided with the palm energy. The huge palm energy shook violently and was then penetrated by the finger energy. Zhang Yi saw this. He frowned slightly and flicked his sleeve. The space distorted violently, and a terrifying wind erupted and destroyed the finger energy. It was a short exchange of blows. Both of them did not move, and it seemed that they were evenly matched. However, only a few people knew that Zhang Yi had already fallen into a disadvantageous position in the previous exchange. In front of the tent in the middle army camp, Du Qingwu stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the void in front of him. He was watching the two of them fight. Dan Hao is indeed the leader of the 5 great generals. He's indeed extraordinary. Zhang Yi might not be a match for him. It was different from Luo Jing. Dan Hao's strength was clearly superior. Moreover, Zhang Yi might not even be able to take down Luo Jing back then. The reason he could kill Luo Jing was because of Shun Hong's help. However, both of them were experts at the 6th level of the heaven-human realm. Even though there was a gap, it would take a lot of time to reach the level of determining the victor. Du Qingwu watched the changes in the battle and thought about something in his heart. At this moment, flames filled the sky and turned into a golden crow that soared into the sky. Zhang Yi held the burning mountain raging flame flag and activated the 6-seal Dao artifact. As for Dan Hao, he held a long spear and spear flowers bloomed, devouring the flames and extinguishing them. In the past, the human emperor bestowed the burning mountain raging flame flag to let the Zhang family stabilize the position of Marquis Nanfeng and protect the peace of the region. Now, you're using this supreme treasure to commit treason. You deserve death. Dan Hao's spear pierced through the void and looked at Zhang Yi with cold eyes. The burning mountain raging flame flag was extraordinary. It was a 6-seal Dao artifact. With this supreme treasure, the other party's strength would increase by at least 50%. Zhang Yi said calmly, "The human emperor is dead. The burning mountain raging flame flag belongs to the Zhang family and has nothing to do with the great Zhao dynasty. Today, I'll let you perish under my burning mountain raging flame flag." Arrogant. Boom. The battle between the two caused a huge commotion. Be it Dan Hao or Zhang Yi, their strength had reached the 6th level of the heaven-human realm and was close to the level of an almighty. Between them, Dan Hao's strength was obviously stronger and was already at the peak of the 6th level of the heaven-human realm. He was a half-step almighty who was close to the almighty realm. Even if Zhang Yi had the burning mountain raging flame flag, he did not have much of an advantage. On the other hand, Dan Hao, his spear techniques were wide open and seemed to sweep across the world. He used offense as defense and neutralized all of Zhang Yi's attacks. As the bright vision general, he had followed the human emperor to war. Dan Hao's spear art was something he had comprehended from countless battles. This was a true move to kill the enemy without any fanciful moves. It was all about simplifying the complicated and using the smallest amount of strength to unleash the greatest effect. On the city wall, Fang Jin was also watching the battle. Now that Dan Hao had arrived with a large number of reinforcements, the situation in the city eased a lot. To him, the main problem now was the outcome of the battle between Dan Hao and Zhang Yi. If Dan Hao won, the morale of the enemy would definitely be low. However, if Dan Hao lost, things would be very troublesome. However, based on Fang Jin's understanding of Dan Hao, this bright vision General rarely lost. Since he dared to challenge Zhang Yi so openly, he must have absolute confidence. Moreover, from the start of the battle until now, Dan Hao did not fall into a disadvantage and even vaguely had the upper hand. This allowed Fang Jin to have a deeper understanding of his strength. The probability of Dan Hao losing this battle is not high. What we need to do now is to prevent others from interfering and launching sneak attacks. On the surface, Fang Jin's expression was calm, but his thoughts were lively. If no one interfered, the probability of Zhang Yi losing was very high. If someone interfered, then the problem would be hard to say. Thinking to there, he moved his gaze away from the battle and looked at the rebel army's tent. Over there, Du Chengwu also sensed the gazes that were focused on him. Thus, he shifted his gaze and met the gaze of the other party. Du Chengwu. Fang Jin's heart froze, and he immediately became vigilant. Fallen Moon Marquis Du Chengwu. This person's strength was also unfathomable. As a marquis, he was not much weaker than Zhang Yi. If the other party wanted to interfere, then he would. Then the problem would be much more serious. Just as Fang Jin was thinking to himself, the situation of the battle was already changing rapidly. A long spear pierced out with the power to shatter mountains and split the earth. The golden crow that was hundreds of feet tall let out a high-pitched cry, but in the end, it disappeared into the void under this spear. Chapter 464. The moment the golden crow shattered, the burning mountain raging flame flag seemed to have dimmed. Zhang Yi's expression suddenly changed. Then, he quickly retreated without thinking. As soon as he retreated, Dan Hao immediately closed in on him. Boom! In front of the middle army tent, Du Chengwu directly exploded. In the next moment, a terrifying attack had already arrived. 2 against 1. Do you really think there's no one in the Great Zhao dynasty? Fang Jin shouted angrily. He also jumped into the air from the city wall and directly shot toward the sky. He had long been on guard against Du Chengwu, worried that the other party would intervene at the critical moment. So, the moment Du Chengwu made his move, Fang Jin would react. Seeing Fang Jin blocking in front of him, Du Chengwu threw a punch and shouted angrily, "Get lost! Get lost!" Fang Jin did not retreat half a step and also threw a punch. The two fists collided. A terrifying gust of wind swept out like a wave. Fang Jin let out a muffled groan as his body retreated a distance. Du Chengwu's attack momentum was also blocked. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. From Du Chengwu's attack to Fang Jin's interception, it added up to less than a breath of time. Standing in the air, Fang Jin suppressed the boiling blood in his body and looked at Du Chengwu with a sneer. The rumored Marquis Luoyue is nothing more than this. You don't dare to fight openly and only do those shameful things. But it's also true that you should associate with people of the same kind. A despicable person like Zhang Yi only deserves to be with despicable people like you. Fang Jin, you're courting death. Du Chengwu's face was terrifyingly cold. He stared at the other party and said word by word. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have thought that Fang Jin would be so annoying. If it was possible, Du Chengwu wanted to kill him right now. In the exchange just now, Fang Jin's strength was not weak. At least, he had reached the Saint Realm. The Celestial Realm was divided into 3 stages: Transcendent, Saint, and Almighty. The Saint Realm, at least the 4th level of the Celestial Realm. In the Saint Realm, the gap between the 4th and 6th level of the Celestial Realm was not very big. It was far less terrifying than the gap between the Transcendent Realm and the Almighty Realm. Facing Du Chengwu's threat, Fang Jin took out a battle saber and said, "I'd also like to see how strong a marquis is. I wonder if a marquis at the 6th tier of the Celestial Human Realm has really reached the level of a half-step Almighty." You will die. Anyone can boast. Whether or not I'll die depends on whether you have the ability. Since you insist on seeking death, then this marquis will fulfill your wish. Du Chengwu couldn't be bothered to waste any more words with Fang Jin. Although Saint Realm cultivators were troublesome, they were nothing to him. It was fine if they didn't fight. If they were to fight, he would make his opponent understand the difference between them. After saying this, Du Qingwu punched out like a god of war with unparalleled momentum. The Tao artifact of the fallen moon manor was not a saber, a spear, or an ordinary weapon. It was a pair of gloves. It was a pair of gloves on Du Zhongwu's hands that allowed him to sweep through everything. As such, although it looked like a simple punch, it was actually more terrifying than any divine realm martial arts. Good timing. Fang Jin roared angrily, green gang chi swirling around his saber. In the next breath, he had already slashed down. Boom. The battle between the two of them suddenly turned into a chaotic battle between four people. Dan Hao relied on his spear to force Zhang Yi into a passive defensive posture. Although he had the burning mountain raging flame flag in his hand, he couldn't use too many tricks. On the other side, Fang Jin's strength was indeed not bad. After breaking through to the 4th level of the celestial being realm, he was already one of the strongest celestial beings. Unfortunately, his opponent was also one of the top figures in the world. To be able to control a manor, Du Chengwu's strength was naturally not weak. Otherwise, how could he be qualified to suppress everything? Therefore, in comparison, although Fang Jin's strength was strong, he was still much weaker than Du Chengwu. This gap didn't mean much at first, but as time passed, it grew bigger and bigger. Boom. The battle here was fierce, but the battles in other parts of the Middle State Prefecture were not weak at all. This time, the 5 prefectures' coalition army had a total of 70 million people. They were divided into 3 groups, and the length of the battlefront caused half of the Middle State Prefecture to be engulfed in smoke. In the imperial court, all the officials looked grim. Shiyang sat on the emperor's throne, his expression indifferent. No one knew what he was thinking. Your Majesty, the army led by General Dan has already been transferred to the front lines. This time, the 5 prefectures' coalition army has a total of 70 million people. Although our army is not weak, there is still a gap. If there are no changes, if this continues, it will be difficult to continue. In the imperial court, a military official dressed in casual clothes stepped out and cupped his hands as he spoke. When the others heard this, they all fell into silence. The severity of the current situation had already exceeded the expectations of the majority of people. An army of 70 million. Even when the Great Zhao Empire was at its peak, it was not to be underestimated, let alone now. Shiyang said indifferently, our Great Zhao Empire has suppressed the world for thousands of years. Our foundation is not something that normal people can compare to. Today is only the first day of the rebels' attack. Could it be that we can't stop them? Your Majesty, one day is naturally not a problem. But as time passes, I'm afraid that the situation will spiral out of control. The military official's forehead was covered in sweat as he forced himself to speak. In this period of time, Shiyang's temper had become more and more irritable. Some of the officials who spoke out of turn were punished by him, so he didn't dare to speak nonsense. As time passes, Shiyang repeated this sentence, then shook his head. Dear officials, do you have any solutions to the current situation? Your Majesty, the only way out now is to summon all the vassals to come to the aid of the emperor and resist the rebels' attack together. A person stepped out and said. As these words fell, instantly, someone agreed. That's right, the rebels' army is only the 5 vassals. We still have the 8 vassals in our hands. If the vassals come to the aid of the emperor, the rebels won't be able to cause much trouble. Hearing this, there were people who wanted to speak up to stop this, but they stopped. As for Shiyang, he did not reply. The vassals coming to the aid of the emperor was indeed a solution. But in the current situation, it was possible that one of the vassals had already rebelled against him. If he summoned the vassals at this time, he might be bitten back. But if he did not summon the vassals, then with the current situation of the Central State Palace, they would definitely not be able to stop the rebels' army. Even if Shiyang did not want to admit this point, he knew what was the truth. If he did not summon the vassals to help, the Central State Palace would definitely fall. If he summoned them to help, he might be inviting the wolf into the house. The former would definitely die, while the latter would still have a chance. After thinking for a moment, Shiyang immediately made a decision. He said, pass down Jun's order. The rebels' army is pressing against the Central State Palace. Summon the vassals to send reinforcements. Your Majesty is wise. The civil and military officials all bowed. No one wanted to die, especially when they had reached their current position. Not many people were willing to give up. If the Great Zhao was destroyed, they would not have an easy time. As for whether the rebels would accept them if they sided with them, it was still uncertain. So, rather than gamble on those possibilities, it was better to hope that the ship of the Great Zhao would remain safe. He summoned the vassals to the aid of the emperor. Xiang gave a second order. He summoned the large sects of the cultivation world to send experts to help. This order was also opposed by many people. After all, the cultivation world had always been separate from the imperial court. The two did not interfere with each other. Now that the imperial court had summoned the sects of the cultivation world to intervene, it would definitely cause a lot of trouble. But for Xiang, right now, the biggest problem was the rebels. As long as the Great Zhao's orthodoxy was preserved, then all the problems would not be a problem. Although the human emperor had fallen and the imperial court's power had weakened. However, the person sitting on the throne before him still possessed great majesty. So Xiang insisted on doing things his way. Even if the other officials objected, it was of no use. Vassals of the various vassals send reinforcements to the emperor. Have the sects of the cultivation world intervene. It seems that Xiang has really lost his head to dare to do such a thing at this time. Zhao Xinghuai looked at the report in his hand with a mocking smile. The imperial court had just decided on something not long ago. He already had the corresponding information in his hands. It was impossible for the vassals of the various vassals to not intervene in the matters of the imperial court after so many years. Those who did so were either fools or idiots. But if the Great Zhao allows the cultivation world to intervene, it may cause some changes. After the mocking, Zhao Xinghuai's expression became serious. Although the cultivation world was not as strong as them, they could not be underestimated. If the cultivation world really intervened, it would be a big hindrance to them. After all, with the Great Zhao's current foundation, if they were willing to be ruthless, the sects would not reject them. Gu Chongqing smiled faintly and said, Xiang can gather the forces of the cultivation world. We may be weaker than the Great Zhao in terms of foundation, but now we have a higher chance of winning. In this case, I believe they know what to do. Brother Gu is right. Zhao Xinghuai nodded and said, they could do what the Great Zhao could do now. Soon, the imperial court's edict was spread. In Baiyun Manor, Marquis Baiyun held the edict and said, now that His Majesty has sent an edict, the Baiyun Manor needs to send troops to rescue the emperor. What do you think? Marquis, the imperial court has sent an edict. It's obvious that they can't hold on anymore. If we send troops, we may not be able to resolve the current situation. Li Guang'an thought for a moment and answered. On the other side, Fu Bo nodded and said, Master Li, you're right. Although the other marquises have not shown any intention of rebelling, there are many people who want a piece of the pie in the imperial court's current state. Now that the imperial court has asked the marquises to send troops, they may be inviting a wolf into the house. If we send troops to help, we may be in deep trouble. Marquis, I hope you can understand. Sending troops to rescue the emperor. Fu Bo was very unwilling in his heart. After all, the Baiyun Manor had such a big advantage now. Why should they risk their lives for the imperial court? With Marquis Baiyun's reputation and strength, he could instantly become the biggest force in the imperial court. Even the possibility of fighting for the throne was not low at all. Until now, Fu Bo did not give up the idea of persuading him to rebel and become the emperor. It was not only Fu Bo. Even the other family generals and consecrators had the same thought. If Marquis Baiyun really did not have the strength to fight for the throne, then forget it. But the problem was, the other party had the strength and the probability of success was high. If they gave up just like that, no one would be willing to accept it. As the saying went, when a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs can ascend to heaven. Everyone knew how important it was to help the emperor become the emperor. Hearing this, Marquis Baiyun pondered for a while and said, now the Great Zhao is still here. If we rebel, we will be disloyal and unrighteous. Our Shao family has also been indebted to the human emperor. We can't forget this. Since the imperial order is given, As a subject of the great Zhao, I have no reason to refuse. Speaking of this, he looked at the others and ordered, "Pass down my order. Immediately prepare the troops and follow me to the Middle State Mansion in 3 days. Marquis, now the demon clan is eyeing us covetously. If we withdraw most of our forces, will the demon clan have an opportunity to take advantage of us?" The demon clan. Marquis Bayun frowned. This was a trouble that could not be avoided. In the end, the foundation of the Bayun Manor was still too weak. Although there were some great cultivators in the god martial arts realm in the Bayun Manor, there was not a single expert in the celestial realm. In other words, when he, a powerful figure, was here, the Bayun Manor was impregnable. But when he, a powerful figure, was not here, the strength of the Bayun Manor was a little weak. Thinking of this, Marquis Bayun said, "Send a message to the Origin sect. Tell them to be vigilant of the demon clan's attack. Also, leave the chaotic blood army in the Bayun Manor to guard against the demon clan's experts." Yes, the others looked at each other and did not object. Now, apart from them, the strongest force in the Bayun Manor was the Origin sect. No matter what, it was the only top sect in the Bayun Manor. Apart from the Origin sect, although there were several sects in the Bayun Manor, they were not strong. It was already a miracle that they had a few cultivators in the god martial arts realm. It was no different from a fool's dream to think that they could fight against a celestial realm expert. In addition, pay close attention to the movements of the experts in the Bayun Manor. If anyone dares to act rashly, send troops to suppress them immediately. Marquis Bayun was not at ease with the experts now. After all, these people had done something bad before. Previously, someone had attacked a city in the ordinary realm, but later, he sent troops to suppress them with a thunderous force. Only then was this evil trend suppressed. But Marquis Bayun was sure. Once the army of the Bayun Manor was withdrawn, these experts would not be willing to be left out. In this way, there would be a lot of trouble in the future. Speaking of this, Marquis Bayun was silent for a while. Finally, he said, "If necessary, you can look for the Origin sect. As the top sect in the Bayun Manor, it won't do them any good if this place is in chaos." If it was another force, he would not have said this. But the relationship between the Bayun Manor and the Origin sect was relatively harmonious. Therefore, Marquis Bayun had a certain degree of trust in the Origin sect. Especially now that the world was in chaos, it was impossible for him to take the front line and let the Origin sect develop steadily in the rear. There was no such good thing in the world. Therefore, at this time, Marquis Bayun could not let the Origin sect develop steadily. If necessary, he had to take the lead. Soon, the Bayun Manor began to move. Mobilizing troops was not a small matter. Not to mention that most of the forces in the Bayun Manor were mobilized this time. The movement caused by this could not be concealed at all. At the same time, the Origin sect also received a message from Marquis Bayun. Apart from that, there was also a message from the imperial court. In a courtyard, 2 messages were spread out in a row. A few elders were staring at them with puzzled expressions. "What do you think?" After a long silence, Zhang Fong was the first to break the silence. Hearing this, Zhang Tiniu sneered and said, "What else can we think? We can basically ignore the imperial court's recruitment. Now that the sect master is out and has not returned, with our strength, the imperial court may not be willing to accept us even if we offer ourselves for free." His words made the others look a little embarrassed. His words were crude but reasonable. The current strength of the Origin sect was supported by Qin Shujian alone. Among the remaining people, there were only a few in the divine martial realm, and they were all guests. For elders like them, being able to enter the airborne realm was already considered a talent. As for the prominent divine realm, there was not a single one. Cultivators in the airborne realm. Even if he could jump realms to fight against prominent divine stage cultivators, it would be useless. With the imperial court's foundation, they would not lack such cultivators. The only ones who could really change the situation of the battle were those above the divine martial realm. Diviner realm. They were the ones who truly stood at the peak of cultivation. Even if he did not get any information from other sects, Zhang Tiniu could basically guess that only the top sects could receive this message. Elder of Law Enforcement is right, but we need to pay attention to Marquis Bayun's message. Su Yuaming nodded and then said, "The demons have not made a move because there is a powerful figure in the Bayun mansion. Now that most of the forces in the Bayun mansion have been transferred to the Zhongzhou mansion, the garrison here will be empty in a short period of time. If the demons want to make a move, this is the best opportunity. Our sect's location is probably the first to bear the brunt, so we have to be careful. I knew that these beasts would not stay put. Some time ago, the news of the demon saint's birth spread, and now there are many strange movements in the Skyen mountain range. Although there are no beast tides or demons, they are probably planning something else." Niu Feng snorted coldly. He also had a great hatred for the demons. In the previous beast tides, many people in the Origin sect had died. Some of them were his original subordinates in the Mingai mountain, and as one of the elders, he had also taken in some disciples to pass on his legacy. However, after 2 beast tides, several of his disciples died directly, over and over again. Even if there was no hatred, there was hatred. What's more, the human clan and the demon clan were originally on opposite sides, so there was no need to say more. Su Yuanming said, "Let the Yuan Pavilion pay close attention to the movements of the demons, in case they really come to our sect and find out about it." The Yuan Pavilion was now the biggest industry in the Origin sect. Similarly, now, a lot of information was collected through the Yuan Pavilion. After all, the Yuan Pavilion was set up in various places, and there was no lack of rogue cultivators, disciples of sects, and omnipresent variant humans who accepted missions. The information provided by these people was both true and false, but there was basically no problem as long as it was screened. On the other side, with the mobilization of the army in the Bayun mansion, the Yuan Pavilion frequently issued various missions against the demons. The quiet atmosphere in Bayun mansion became tense all of a sudden. Everyone could understand. What did such a change mean? The Blue Cloud sect. Qing Su was now worried, so he immediately ordered the disciples in the sect to be vigilant during this period and pay attention to any unexpected situations. When necessary, he was already prepared to move the sect. There was no other way. Until now, the Blue Cloud sect only had Qing Su, a spirit god, in charge. In addition, there were many true martial realm cultivators. But for the current Blue Cloud sect, no matter how many true martial realm cultivators there were, it was useless. The spirit martial realm was the entry level. The god martial realm was the entry level. Only the diviner realm could truly stand at the top. This was the sorrow of being next to a top sect. The Origin sect was once weaker than the Blue Cloud sect, and then it was equal to the Blue Cloud sect, and then it surpassed the Blue Cloud sect. Now, it had completely left the Blue Cloud sect in the dust. All this time, Qing Su was under a lot of pressure. Now he was a little regretful. Why did he only ask the Origin sect to protect the Blue Cloud sect for 20 years? If he knew that the Origin sect was so strong, it should have been 200 years or even 2,000 years. But it was too late to regret now. What really worried Qing Su was the Origin sect's actions. After all, the Origin Pavilion was founded by the Origin sect. The Origin Pavilion's actions represented the Origin sect's actions. How could it be a simple matter to make a top sect treat it so cautiously? When that time came, if something really happened to the Origin sect, then even a little bit of the aftermath would be able to turn the Blue Cloud sect into ashes. No, the Blue Cloud sect can't just disappear like this. It seems like I have to think of a way to leave this place. If a power that can barely be considered an ordinary sect of the spirit domain gets involved in the matters of a top sect, then it's really digging its own grave. The more he thought about it, the more shocked Qing Su was. If something really happened, it was a problem whether the Origin sect could care about the Blue Cloud sect. As for what exactly caused Yuan Zhong to be so cautious, one only needed to think about it carefully before one could basically guess it. Either it was related to the Imperial Court, or it was related to the demon race. Considering the location of Mount Liang's spirit domain, Qing Su was certain that this matter was related to the monster race. The demon race. Qing Su took a deep breath. Instantly, the thought of moving the sect became stronger. But when Qing Su thought about the current situation of the Blue Cloud sect, he was somewhat unwilling to leave just like that. As the number of experts in the origin sect increased, other than the origin sect itself, the other areas would also be able to obtain some benefits. In addition, the Blue Cloud sect had been operating here for so many years. If they moved, it would be equivalent to starting from scratch. For a moment, Qing Su's expression was conflicted. Unknowingly, his hand had already pulled out a handful of his beard. To move or not to move, this was really a problem. On the other side, the Origin sect had received the news. As the sect master of the Origin sect, it was naturally impossible for Qin Shujian to not receive any news. Almost at the same time, Sect Master Qin's communication Jade Talisman sent a message. P.S. It's the end of the month. Begging for a monthly ticket, Chidian Chinese Network. Chapter 465. It has finally come to this. Not only has Marquis Baiyun been dragged into this, but the cultivation world has also been dragged into it. At this time, no one can stay out of this. After receiving the news, Qin Shujian's expression also became solemn. The imperial court's action proved that the situation had reached a certain extent. Or else, now that the vassals were rebelling, they would definitely not easily summon the other vassals to send troops to help the king. This carelessness. Perhaps this was the situation of leading the wolf into the house. Human, don't go too far. An angry roar came from below, interrupting Qin Shujian's contemplation. Soon, Qin Shujian came back to his senses after hearing the roar, then looked down at the evil demon under his feet and said, "Why are you in such a hurry to die? Human, do it if you have the guts. The next time I come out of the demon abyss, I will definitely tear you into pieces. Pull out your spiritual deity and suppress it under the demon abyss forever. You will not be reincarnated and suffer day and night." The evil demon seemed to have gone crazy, and he kept spitting out threatening words from his mouth. Now, he just wanted to die. Qin Shujian's strength was too strong, so strong that he, as a celestial being, had no chance to fight back at all. Instead of being humiliated by the other party, he might as well be killed by the other party. Anyway, the evil demon clan was immortal, and Qin Shujian did not look like he could take out Zhu Bing. At worst, he would just go back to the demon abyss. A gentleman's revenge. 10,000 years was not too late. Sooner or later, he would walk out of the demon abyss again. At that time, it would be time for revenge. If you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Qin Shujian had never refused such a request. A red lotus of purgation was thrown down and swallowed the evil demon. When it touched the red lotus of purgation, the evil demon's expression, which was originally unafraid of death, suddenly changed and became extremely frightened. However, once the red lotus of purgation fell, there was no chance for regret. It only took a few minutes. The several hundred feet tall evil spirit was completely refined, leaving only a red lotus behind. Qin Shujian absorbed the red lotus, and his life source increased by a lot. And when the source of life broke through to 1 billion, in the special martial arts column, the Celestial Light Alchemy Tome and the Ancestral Foundry Cannon both had a plus sign that could be upgraded. The last increase was 10 million, but this time, it's 1 billion. It's a 100-fold increase. Qin Shujian had also collected a lot of information about Array Dao. He also knew a little about the division of Array Dao Grandmasters. Array Masters were divided into 3 realms. He was currently at the first level of the Grandmaster realm. After that, there were still the second and third levels of the Grandmaster realm. Among them, at the peak of the second level of the Master realm, one could contend against an expert at the 6th level of the Celestial Being realm. However, the strength of the formation was largely dependent on the strength of the cultivator. Otherwise, if one's strength was insufficient, it would be difficult to support the operation of the formation. When Qin Shujian broke through to the first level of the Grandmaster realm, the formation he set up was only used to deal with the God Martial Arts realm. If he wanted to deal with the Celestial Being experts, he would need to use many Taoist artifacts and then set up the formation. It was not until he broke through to the God Martial Arts realm that his spirit god became extremely powerful that he could fully exert the strength of the first level of the Grandmaster realm without the help of Taoist artifacts. From the ancestral foundry canon, Qin Shujian was sure that the upgrade this time was a transformation from the first level to the second level. However, at the peak of the second level of the Grandmaster realm, he could deal with the sixth level of the celestial being. But with his current strength, he could not fully exert the strength of the second level of the Grandmaster realm. As for the help of Taoist artifacts, it was impossible. 3 sealed Taoist artifacts could deal with those who had just entered the celestial being realm. But if he wanted to deal with experts above the 4th level of the celestial being realm, it was much worse. But Taoist artifacts with 3 seals and above, Qin Shujian did not have any now. So, the upgrade of the second level of the Grandmaster realm would not be of much help to his strength. 1 billion life sources is not a small amount. I'd better keep it first. The second level of the Grandmaster realm is not necessary now. Right now, the main thing is to find a way to advance to the celestial being realm. Qin Shujian shook his head. This was not the first time that this prompt had appeared. It was just that he had focused on the Guiyuan ancestral canon the first few times and did not pay much attention to other things. Then, he took a look at the surrounding array formation before heading to the next area. The world was going to be in chaos. Not only would there be internal strife in the Great Zhao Empire, but there would also be war between races in the future. Without enough strength to support it, it would be a dead end. Qin Shujian had never denied that he was greedy for life and afraid of death, so he naturally did not want to die. In the following period of time, his way of doing things was like a machine. He ran around and killed all the evil spirits he encountered. During this period of time, the war in Zhongzhou Prefecture was also particularly fierce. The dukes of various prefectures sent troops there, as well as the participation of the cultivation world sects, which greatly increased the power of the imperial court. Not only could they resist the rebels, but they also had a faint tendency to drive them out. The form of victory. It was tilting toward the imperial court. It was only now that other people understood just how deep the imperial court's foundations were. In this kind of situation, it was shocking that a single imperial edict could still salvage the situation. The current situation of the imperial court was very good. On the other hand, the situation on the rebels' side was not very good. Qin Shujian heard this news, but did not pay any attention to it. If this predicament could be resolved so easily, the army would not have attacked Zhongzhou Prefecture. Also, the Yao would not sit and watch the Great Zhao quell the rebellion. Some people were optimistic about the current situation of the Great Zhao, but others could see what kind of danger was hidden behind this ostentatious appearance. Especially during this period of time, the frequent strange movements in the endless mountain range caused Qin Shujian to be extremely vigilant. Boom! Another evil spirit fell. Qin Shujian threw down the red lotus of purgation and cleanly refined this evil spirit. Soon, all of its life force was exhausted. The Guiyuan ancestral canon had been upgraded to the 9th level of the divine martial arts. It was not much different from Qin Shujian's estimation. To upgrade to the 9th level of the divine martial arts, it consumed 5 billion points of life force. Looking at the situation in the past, the amount of life force consumed to upgrade to perfection was usually twice as much as the previous level. 10 billion points of life force. Qin Shujian muttered in his heart, and then his gaze became firm. Soon, 10 billion won't take long. My luck points are about to break through 10,000. I don't know if the Dharma I still has room for improvement. In the past, the biggest improvement he had encountered was 10 times. But the special martial arts now told him that there was still a 100-fold improvement. With the Dharma Eye's ability, if it did not improve at 10,000 points of luck points, then the next improvement might be at 100,000 points of luck points. 100,000 points of luck points. Thinking of this, Qin Shujian felt a little suffocated. Even if he had the red lotus of purgation now and could kill evil spirits all over the world, he might not be able to gather 100,000 points of luck points. Do I really have to kill my way into the demon abyss? This thought suddenly appeared in Qin Shujian's mind, and then he immediately expelled it. Kill his way into the demon abyss. This idea was too crazy. The celestial realm was considered a top expert in the human race, but in the demon abyss, the lowest level was the celestial realm. Not to mention that he was only at the 9th level of the divine martial arts. Even if he became a celestial realm in the future, he would not have the chance to kill his way into the demon abyss. After breaking through to the 9th level of the divine martial arts, Qin Shujian had already felt that his strength had gradually reached a peak level. It could be said that the improvement in the divine martial arts was completely different from the spirit martial arts. The reason why he could be so fast was also because of the existence of the Red Lotus of Purgation. He glanced at the cultivation method column. There was only one Guiyuan ancestral cannon, sitting there alone. Qin Shujian thought to himself, I don't know if the cultivation method can break the shackles of the level without fusing the cultivation method, or if I have to fuse other cultivation methods to break the shackles of the level. To be honest, he was very satisfied with the current Guiyuan ancestral cannon. If it was possible, Qin Shujian didn't want to fuse with other cultivation methods. As for the reason, if he fused with the Red Lotus of Purgation, he wouldn't even have a place to cry. And there were a lot of things. To upgrade a divine martial arts method to perfection, it required about 20 billion life sources. 6 cultivation methods. That would be 120 billion. Qin Shujian wasn't sure if killing all the demons in the Great Zhao could provide so much life sources. Not to mention 120 billion. Even if there was another 30 or 40 billion, it would probably be difficult. Because he wasn't the only one killing demons now. During this period of time, there had been a lot of missed opportunities. Without the demons providing life sources, it would take at least a few hundred years to accumulate so much life sources. As for advancing to the celestial realm after a few hundred years, Qin Shujian shook his head. There was really no need for that. The divine martial arts realm consumes too much life sources. I can't play like before. No matter how strong the divine martial arts realm is, it's only the divine martial arts realm. Even if my foundation is so deep that it's scary, I still can't get rid of this restriction. If I pile this life sources on a cultivation method, it'll be enough for me to walk a certain distance in the celestial realm. At that time, with the strength of the celestial realm, it'll definitely be easier to harvest life sources. It was different now. In the past, the basic martial arts realm, the true martial arts realm, and the spirit martial arts realm were better. The highest level of life sources required was only 10 million. With the speed at which Yuan Zone provided life sources, it didn't take much time. But after breaking through to the divine martial arts realm, it was completely different. The divine martial arts realm consumed at least 100 million life sources. For Qin Shujian, the consumption was too great. So from the beginning to the end, he didn't think about staying in the divine martial arts realm for long. As long as there was a chance to advance to the celestial realm, he would immediately break through. There was no need to stay too long. After staying in place for a while and adapting to the power of the 9th level of the divine martial arts realm, Qin Shujian left this place and headed to the next location. Endless Mountain Range, Heavenly Yao Temple. The Great Zhao situation has stabilized. Did the humans really find a chance to breathe? A Yao Saint's expression wasn't very good. Internal strife was what they wanted to see. Now that the Great Zhao situation had stabilized, it wasn't a good thing for the Yao race. Another Yao Saint tilted his head and looked at that figure. Can Zesheng divine the fate of the Great Zhao? Hearing this, Zesheng said, the Great Zhao's fate is stable. I can't see much. The human emperor has fallen and the flames of war are rising everywhere. How can the Great Zhao's fate still be stable? Hearing this, the Yao Saint's expressions changed. Stable fate. This wasn't just a saying. Only when the situation was stable and prosperous could the fate be stable. If the Great Zhao's fate was stable, it proved that the humans still had other tricks up their sleeves. All their previous investments would have been for nothing. Regarding this, Zesheng, on the other hand, didn't make any big movements. He smiled and said, the Great Zhao has an ancestral weapon to suppress its fate. The fate of the nation is naturally not so easily shaken. Unless the imperial city is truly breached, the fate of the nation will only shake. What Zesheng means is that the reason why the Great Zhao nation is stable is because of the ancestral armament. Of course, Zesheng nodded. Ever since the Yao Emperor fell, the Yao race also declined for a period of time. But with Zhu Bing stabilizing the fate, it didn't cause the fate of the clan to be shaken. This is the same principle. That's good. The other Yao saints sighed in relief. They had thought that the human emperor hadn't died, and that was why the great Zhao's fate was stable. If the human emperor really hadn't died, then the Yao race would be in great trouble. Zhesheng also saw what the other Yao saints were thinking and laughed. Xingtian will definitely fall. This is the news that this seed obtained after divining the world. It's easy to hide it from us, but it's extremely difficult to hide it from the world. In addition, although the lifespan of a human diviner is long, the strongest can only live for 7,000 to 8,000 years. It's difficult to surpass this limit and reach 10,000 years. Thinking about it carefully, Xingtian has almost reached his limit, unless he can break the shackles of a diviner. Speaking of this, Zhesheng paused for a moment before shaking his head. But even if we calculate for 100,000 years, there hasn't been a strong person who broke the limit of a diviner. Even if Xingtian broke through, there's no need for him to fake his death. The heavenly Yao Temple could stop a human emperor in the diviner realm, but they couldn't stop a strong person above the diviner realm. No matter how you looked at it, there was no need for the human emperor to fake his death. Looking at the results of the divination, Zhesheng was 100% sure that the human emperor must have fallen. A Yao saint said, "Since the human emperor is confirmed to have fallen, then we definitely can't let the great Zhao stabilize the situation. Otherwise, if our race goes to war with the humans, even if we win, we'll suffer great losses." Didn't Gu Chongqing hope that we have more Yao saints to help us? In this seat's view, this is very promising. As soon as he finished speaking, another Yao saint chimed in. Previously, Gu Chongqing hoped for more Yao saints to help, but the demon race didn't agree easily. First, the demon race thought that 2 Yao saints were enough for the situation at that time. Second, they were worried that the humans might be plotting something, so they didn't make a move. Although Gu Chongqing was their ally now, the demon race wouldn't completely trust him. After all, one was a human and the other was a demon. If the other party was determined to trick them, they wouldn't even have a place to cry. Zhesheng pondered for a moment and nodded. It's a good opportunity for us to intervene now. I heard that Xiao Chengfeng has also made a move in Baiyun Manor. Should we take this opportunity to test them? You want to test Baiyun Manor? Why not? Now that the Great Zhao has stabilized the situation, part of the reason is because of Marquis Baiyun. Right now, Baiyun Manor is defenseless, so we can test them. If Baiyun Manor is really defenseless, then we won't make a move. If Baiyun Manor is defenseless, the demon saint snorted coldly at the end of his sentence. If Baiyun Manor was defenseless, then they would massacre the entire Baiyun Manor and let the humans know what the demon race's anger was. Back then, Marquis Baiyun went deep into the endless mountains and killed a heavenly human Yao. The heavenly demon temple didn't say anything, but it was impossible to say that they weren't angry at all. However, after weighing the pros and cons of a heavenly human Yao, the Yao saints didn't start a war with Baiyun Manor in the end. Hearing this, Zhesheng frowned and then said, "What do you plan to do?" The most influential force in Baiyun Manor, aside from the Great Zhao, is Sky Origin Sect. You plan to start with Sky Origin Sect? Sky Origin Sect's sect master is currently running around in other manors. Even if it's a top sect, how much can a sect that was just established a few years ago have? Sending a powerful Yao over is enough. If that's the case, it's doable. Zhesheng nodded. No matter what, the North Cloud Manor was a manor that was guarded by a powerful being. Even a beast overlord wouldn't risk his life for no reason. As for the Yao Kings, with the current strength of the Heavenly Demon Temple, although they could order them around, it wasn't easy to directly order them around. After all, the Yao Kings were only one step away from the Yao Saints. Although they killed a few Yao Kings when they suppressed the Yao clan last time, they couldn't threaten them with the Yao Saints of the Heavenly Demon Temple. Otherwise, it would easily cause a bad reaction. As for the Yao Saints in the God Martial Arts realm, they couldn't test anything. After thinking for a long time, only Yao Saints in the Heavenly Human realm were the most suitable. I heard that when the Sky Corp sect was destroyed, the Sky Origin sect obtained a celestial being level zombie. Could this zombie be overseeing the Sky Origin sect? Suddenly, A demon overlord seemed to have thought of something and spoke up to remind them. Zaisheng shook his head and said, "The Heavenly Corpse sect spent a lot of effort to control that zombie. Even if Sky Origin sect got the zombie, it's impossible to control it in such a short time." As Yao Saints, they knew a little about zombies. It wasn't that easy to control them. Even if Yuan Zhong obtained that zombie, he could only seal it or hide it in some other place. No matter what, it wouldn't be easy for Sky Origin sect to control that zombie. Then, the Yao Saints talked. After a long time, the Heavenly Demon Temple fell silent. On the other side, a middle-aged man in purple walked out of the Skyen mountain range. Along the way, all the Yao beasts that encountered him prostrated on the ground or retreated, not daring to approach him. The man looked at the Yao beasts with indifference, as if he was looking at ants. Humans? Looking at the player who appeared not far away, Ziwu paused for a moment and then shook his head. This wasn't a human. It was a mutant. Although he was a Yao Saint and had always lived in the depths of the Skyen mountain range, he had some understanding of the mutant race that appeared out of nowhere. Although they looked exactly the same as humans, they were immortal and indestructible. Although their strength wasn't high, they were still a race that couldn't be underestimated. Ziwu understood that the Heavenly Demon Temple's order was to test the strength of the Baiyun Mansion, so he didn't want to start a conflict with these mutants. Or else, if he exposed himself in advance, the effect would be much worse. Ziwu took a step forward and disappeared on the spot. Was there someone there just now? Why did he suddenly disappear? A player looked at Ziwu who disappeared and couldn't help but be puzzled. He even rubbed his eyes, wondering if he had seen wrongly. Hearing this, the player beside him turned his head and looked over. Then, he shook his head and laughed. Where did he come from? Besides, if there was someone, you can't be the only one who saw him. He must have made a mistake. Maybe. The player replied with uncertainty. Made a mistake? With his physical invulnerability realm strength, the probability was very low. However, if the purple-robed figure wanted to disappear in an instant, he would have to be extremely powerful. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to do it. However, there were experts in the Skyen mountain range from time to time to hunt some Yao beasts or search for treasures. This wasn't something to be surprised about. After that, the player forgot about what had just happened. As long as it didn't affect him, it didn't matter who the other party was. On the other side, Ziwu had already appeared at the border of the Skyen mountain range. When he took a step forward, the demon-slaying formation suddenly appeared in the sky. Then, a bolt of lightning struck down. The terrifying power was enough to threaten a celestial realm expert. Formation pattern. Ziwu's expression was serious. Then, a layer of faint purple light appeared on his body. He took a step forward and faced the bolt of lightning. The moment the bolt of lightning struck, the purple light shattered. Ziwu groaned, but he had already charged out of the range of the demon-slaying formation. As expected of something left behind by a formations master, this demon-vanquishing formation is enough to stop any demons below the heavenly man realm. Ziwu looked back at the demon-vanquishing formation in the sky as a sliver of seriousness appeared in her eyes. The moment he charged through the formation pattern, it seemed very simple. In fact, only he himself knew how dangerous that step was. If it wasn't for his strength as a celestial realm Yao, any other Yao would have been seriously injured when he took that step, even if it was a peak god martial realm Yao. Just as he entered the Liang mountain range, he encountered such a thing. The trace of disdain that Ziwu originally had in her heart had completely vanished at this moment. This formation grandmaster of the origin sect is really not simple. He sighed with emotion. Then, he took a step forward and left this place. After the demon-slaying formation pattern was activated, it didn't take long for the experts of the origin sect to arrive. How is it? Did you notice anything? There's nothing unusual. A Yao beast should have accidentally walked out and touched the formation pattern left behind by the sect master. If nothing unexpected happened, that Yao beast should have been turned into ashes. The two spirit god realm patrollers observed the situation in the surroundings. However, they didn't notice anything unusual. A situation like this had happened a few times in the past. It was all when a demonic beast accidentally left the Skyend mountain range, and then it caused the demon-slaying formation to appear and obliterate it. So, after investigating for a while, they didn't notice anything unusual. The two patrollers directly left. Chapter 466. The demon-slaying formation was triggered. Could it be that the demon clan is making a move? Zhang Fong looked into the distance. It was the location of the endless mountain range. The commotion just now had attracted the attention of many people. Niu Feng said, "The patrolling disciples have already gone to check it out. They didn't find anything abnormal. It should be because a demon beast accidentally walked out of the endless mountain range and triggered the demon-slaying formation." The demon-slaying formation was extremely powerful. It was also the first line of defense against demon beasts and the demon clan. If one wanted to break through the demon-slaying formation, they would need to be half-step diviners or diviners. As for those at the peak of the divine martial realm, they might not be able to resist the formation. It's always better to be careful. Zhang Feng's expression turned serious. Pay close attention to the Liang mountain range. See if there are any demon clan experts who have broken out of the endless mountain range. If there were any demon clan experts who had broken out, it would be a diviner. If so, it meant that the demon clan could no longer hold back and was preparing to attack the Baiyun mansion. It's good to check it out. Niu Feng nodded. At this moment, his expression was also calm. The patrolling disciples didn't find anything abnormal. There were only two possibilities. One was that the demon clan experts had been killed by the formation. The other was that they had ignored the formation's attack and directly broke out. If it was the former, it would be fine. If it was the latter, then things would be troublesome. If they could ignore the demon-slaying formation, with the current strength of the Baiyun mansion, it was still a question whether they could stop such an expert. Soon, Niu Feng used his identity as the mountain guard elder to ask all the patrolling disciples to pay close attention to the Liang mountain range. The news that the demon clan might have broken out of the endless mountain range. Gradually, the news spread out. With so many people talking, it was impossible to hide it. However, even if the news spread out, it wouldn't have a big impact. Just as the patrolling disciples increased, purple mist had quietly passed through the layers of blockades and arrived at the foot of Liang Mountain. This is Liang Mountain. No wonder it's where the city lord lives. It's really a place of fortune. Looking at the Liang Mountain in front of her and the overflowing spirit qi, purple mist was shocked. When it came to the density of spirit qi, Liang Mountain range was much stronger than the demon clan's territories that were guarded by great demons. Everything could be seen with a single glance. From the concentration of spirit qi, one could tell the strength of a sect's foundation. Even if they weren't strong now, with such rich spirit qi, it was only a matter of time before enough powerhouses were born. It is rumored that the Yuan sect has only been established for 3 years, yet it already possesses such a foundation. In another 30 or even 300 years, it is likely that it will pose quite a great threat to our demon tribe. Ziwu stood in the same spot without moving. Her thoughts rotated within her heart. He suddenly understood why the heavenly demon temple wanted him to start with Yuanzong. Such a human sect with such great potential would be a disaster for the demon clan sooner or later. If he didn't solve it as soon as possible, perhaps in the future, he would be in even more trouble. At this moment, many disciples of Yuan's sect passed by and saw the middle-aged man in purple robes standing motionlessly in front of the mountain gate. Everyone had a puzzled look on their face. As far as they were concerned, the appearance of the purple mist was simply too unfamiliar. All of a sudden, Purple Fog frowned. He felt that someone was trying to spy on him. He turned his head and saw a player standing there motionless. Hiss! This is definitely a powerhouse. At this moment, Su Kai didn't notice Ziwu's gaze. He was completely focused on the results of the profound insight technique. Blank. Everything was blank. In the past, even if he encountered a cultivator who was stronger than him, he would be able to see something with the profound insight technique. But now, everything was blank. Then, there was only one possibility. The The strength of the middle-aged man in purple robes in front of him was far beyond his imagination and had reached an unimaginable level. Thinking of this, Sukai's face immediately revealed a kind smile. Then, he walked forward and asked politely, "Senior, you look unfamiliar. May I know why you have come to Yuan's sect?" As he spoke, he was already thinking about the mission in his heart. He was powerful. His background was also quite mysterious. Perhaps he would carry a mission with him. When the time came, he would casually give him 1 or 2 missions. The reward would probably not be small. Ziwu glanced at the other party. Just now, this person had used some unknown method to spy on him. According to the temper of a heavenly human demon, he should have swallowed the other party directly. However, the matter of the demon slaying array pattern just now made Ziwu much more cautious and didn't act rashly. At this moment, hearing this, there wasn't much expression on his face as he said, "I've heard of Yuan's sect's great name. I'm just here to take a look and pay a visit to the experts of Yuan's sect." "I see. Senior, I'm a disciple of Yuan's sect. If you don't mind, do you need me to introduce you?" "There's no need." Ziwu frowned slightly at Sukai's enthusiasm. However, he didn't care about it. A person who hadn't even entered the spirit martial realm was no different from an ant in his eyes. After speaking, he didn't bother to pay attention to Sukai and slowly walked up Mount Liang. Although Yuan's sect was on Mount Liang, strictly speaking, the foot of Mount Liang wasn't considered Yuan's sect's mountain gate. Seeing that Ziwu completely ignored him, Sukai was somewhat dumbfounded. However, as a player, having the spirit of perseverance was one of the necessary conditions. Therefore, he directly followed behind Ziwu, wanting to catch up with him. However, the strange thing was, every step Ziwu took seemed small, but Sukai couldn't close the distance between them no matter how hard he tried. Seeing this, his heart shook again. To be able to do this, he was undoubtedly a powerful expert. As for Sukai, the purple mist completely ignored him. After stepping onto Mount Liang, not long after, he arrived at Yuan's sect's mountain gate. Originally, Ziwu planned to directly barge into Yuan's sect's mountain gate and use his strength as a diviner to test the depth of Yuan's sect. If this sect's strength wasn't enough, then the test would no longer be a test. However, just as he was about to step into Yuan's sect's mountain gate, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. At the same time, a terrifying premonition arose in his heart. "There's an expert?" Ziwu's face was filled with bewilderment. Then, he swept his gaze to the left and right and happened to see a black-robed man sitting cross-legged in front of the mountain gate's stone tablet. When he saw the black-robed man, his heart shook again. When he first arrived here, he really didn't notice anyone here. It wasn't that he didn't notice, but that the other party's aura was hidden too well. If he didn't look with his eyes, he wouldn't be able to sense it at all. Not only that, when Ziwu's attention was fully focused on Jiang Feng, the expression on her face became even more solemn. He couldn't see through him. He couldn't see through him at all. This unforeseen event caused the sense of crisis in his heart to become even more intense. He suppressed the shock in his heart. Ziwu cupped his hands and said, "May I ask who you are?" As soon as he finished speaking, there was no response. In his line of sight, the black-robed man didn't even move. He was like a stone statue and didn't reveal any aura at all. Seeing this, Ziwu's face was also unhappy. He said in a deep voice, "Aren't you too arrogant? Don't you even dare to show your true face?" There was still no response. The silence was a little awkward, especially since this was Yuan's sect's mountain gate. There were many people entering and exiting. When they saw Ziwu cupping his hands and talking to a black-robed man, it was as if they were looking at an idiot. "I'm afraid he's not new. I didn't expect that there would be people who don't know that the black-robed man never speaks. He looks unfamiliar. Maybe he really is new." Many disciples stopped and discussed in low voices. However, to Purple Mist, these people's whispers were no different than if they were speaking loudly in his ears. Suddenly, Ziwu's face darkened even more. "Since you don't want to meet me, don't blame me for being rude." He took a step forward and grabbed the black-robed man's hood with his palm. This scene, immediately, It shocked the others and Su Kai, who had just arrived. Then, a curious look appeared on their faces. It wasn't just Ziwu. Even the other people in Yuan's sect were curious about the black-robed man's identity. However, there were rules in the sect that no one could disturb the black-robed man. Therefore, although they were itching, they couldn't really challenge the sect rules. Now that Ziwu had made a move, the others had the idea to find out. However, there were also people who noticed that something was wrong with Ziwu and had already sent a message to the experts in the sect. It was also at this moment, when Ziwu's palm was less than 3 feet away from the black-robed man, an aura that seemed like a sleeping beast that had just woken up suddenly exploded. Then, a palm that seemed to be made of black iron stretched out from the black-robed man and blocked Ziwu's palm. Then, the hood of the black-robed man lifted up and a pair of red eyes stared coldly at him. That pair of eyes. They didn't have the slightest bit of normal emotions. There was only brutality and bloodlust. The moment this aura spread out, the surrounding disciples had the illusion that they had fallen into an ice cellar. Their bodies seemed to have frozen and they couldn't move at all. Not only that, even the entire Yuan sect was covered by this terrifying aura. In a split second, the wind and clouds changed color. Even the sun seemed to have been blocked by it. A sudden change. It immediately alarmed everyone in Yuan's sect. At the same time, Ziwu didn't even think about it before explosively retreating. Then, she rushed out of Mount Liang. However, even though he wanted to leave, Jiang Feng had no intention of letting him go. As a sky corpse, Qin Shujian had given him an order to prohibit anyone from entering Yuan's sect without permission. In addition, anyone who attacked him would be killed without mercy. The first order. Ziwu hadn't acted up yet. However, the second order had triggered Qin Shujian's order. Therefore, the moment Ziwu left, Jiang Feng suddenly stood up from the ground. A brutal aura crazily exploded. In the next moment, he had already disappeared from where he stood. After Jiang Feng had left, only then did the freezing cold dissipate a lot, allowing the others to come back to their senses. Damn, the black-robed man is really a hidden peerless expert. That aura is even stronger than those god martial realm experts I've seen. I'm afraid that only the sect master can stand shoulder to shoulder with this strength. The ancients didn't lie to me. Those who sweep the floor and guard the door are all peerless experts. Awesome. After a short moment of silence, there was an earth-shattering noise. No one had expected that the black-robed man sitting next to the mountain gate's stone tablet was really an expert. Moreover, he wasn't just an ordinary expert. Some of the players who had tried to test Jiang Feng and wanted to take on a mission to no avail were now even crazier. At first, they thought that Jiang Feng was either arrogant or a fool. But now, wasn't it normal for a peerless expert to maintain his demeanor? Just as Jiang Feng was about to explode, in Yuan's sect, Zhang Feng and the other elders were the first to react. What's going on? Looking at Jiang Feng, who had disappeared from the mountain gate and the constantly fluctuating vast aura in front of him, Zhang Feng asked in a deep voice. After that, immediately, a disciple replied, "First Elder." A middle-aged man in a purple robe just came and attacked the black-robed senior, and then this happened. A middle-aged man in a purple robe. Zhang Feng muttered in his mouth. Immediately, a glint flashed in his old eyes. The Demon Clan. Not long ago, the demon-slaying formation was activated, and now someone came to the sect to provoke it, which led to Heavenly Corpse Jiang Feng's attack. He would never believe that there was no connection between this and the Demon Clan. However, Zhang Feng originally thought that if the Demon Clan really came out of the Skyan Mountains, they would go to the entire Baiyun mansion. He didn't expect that the other party would be so bold as to come directly to Yuan's sect. Thinking of this, he and the other elders looked at each other and saw their own thoughts from each other's eyes. Then, Zhang Feng said, "Our sect is invaded by a strong enemy. All disciples return to the mountain gate and don't interfere. This guy must be in the celestial being realm. Don't let any unnecessary injuries happen." Celestial being? Many disciples of Yuan's sect were shocked again. However, Zhang Feng didn't have time to say too much to them. After giving some simple instructions, he followed the other elders and left together with them. The mysterious enemy retreated and Jiang Feng went to chase after them. However, no one was sure what the result would be. In the absence of Qin Shujian, Heavenly Corpse Jiang Feng was Yuan Sect's biggest trump card. A zombie with the battle strength of a celestial being was absolutely not to be lost. At this moment, the two of them, one fleeing and one chasing, had already left the boundary of Liang Mountain and directly entered the Skyan Mountains. No matter what, Ziwu was still a celestial being demon. Being chased by the other party all the way to the Skyan Mountains, she felt a little embarrassed, so she decided not to escape. Everyone was a celestial being. Who could be stronger than the other? Although Jiang Feng's aura was terrifying, it definitely hadn't reached the level of a demon king. In this case, Ziwu didn't think that she was weaker than the other party. Therefore, the battle unfolded like this. When two celestial being experts fought, even if it was just a punch or a kick, it could cause the mountains to collapse and the earth to crack and crush everything into powder. The moment the two sides clashed, the terrifying position covered a large area. But all the beasts that felt this power all ran away with their tails between their legs, not daring to stay for a moment. Some beasts couldn't escape in time and directly exploded in the aftermath of the battle between the two. Not only that, even some humans who entered the Skyan Mountains couldn't escape. However, whether it was Ziwu or Jiang Feng, they didn't care about these things. The demon race had an indifferent attitude towards the demon beast men. No matter how many of them died, it wouldn't affect Ziwu's heart. As for Jiang Feng, as a heavenly corpse, he was cruel and bloodthirsty, and he had no emotions to speak of. Boom! For a moment, the towering tree collapsed, and the earth shook incessantly. As the previous sect master of the Heavenly Corpse sect, Jiang Feng's strength was already extraordinary. After his death, he was refined into a heavenly corpse by refining ancient Ming. His strength didn't decrease but increased instead, reaching a terrifying level. As a demon race, Ziwu was powerful, but compared to Jiang Feng, she was still a little weaker. Vital essence condensed into purple feathers, and then turned into endless blades, strangling toward Jiang Feng. The black robe was shattered, revealing the black iron-like body inside. Those purple feathers only left faint marks on the body, but they couldn't break through the defense at all. Heavenly Corpse. At this moment, Ziwu finally knew Jiang Feng's true identity. He had long heard that Yuan Zong had obtained a heavenly corpse from the Heavenly Corpse sect. However, according to the information from the Heavenly Demon Temple, this heavenly corpse should have been sealed by Yuan Zong and not controlled by him. However, the scene in front of him made Ziwu's heart tremble. For a moment, many thoughts surged in his mind. The Heavenly Demon Temple said that the heavenly corpse was sealed by Yuan Zong, but now the heavenly corpse was controlled by Yuan Zong. Is the Heavenly Demon Temple trying to trick me? Or is the Heavenly Demon Temple preparing to destroy my purple mist clear feather crane clan? Ziwu couldn't help but think. He was the only heavenly being in the purple mist clear feather crane clan. If he died in the Liang Mountain spirit domain, then there would be no heavenly being in his clan. When that time came, the Heavenly Demon Temple could probably destroy the purple mist clear feather crane clan with a flick of their fingers. As for the reason why they wanted to destroy the purple mist clear feather crane clan, Ziwu instantly thought of it. Back then, his clan had also gone against the Heavenly Demon Temple. However, after the Heavenly Demon Temple killed several top clans, the Purple Mist Clear Feather Crane clan immediately surrendered. But thinking about it carefully, the Heavenly Demon Temple probably remembered this matter too. Heavenly Demon Temple, you want to trick me? We're not done with this matter. Ziwu was furious as he fought with Jiang Feng. With the power of the Heavenly Demon Temple, how could he not know that the Heavenly Corpse had been refined by Yuan Zong? If he hadn't escaped quickly, if he had fought on Yuan Zong's home ground, the situation would have become critical. After all, Yuan Zong had an array formation grandmaster in charge. Even if the other party wasn't in the Liang Mountain spirit domain now, some of the means left behind were enough to threaten ordinary heavenly beings and demons. Plus, there was the heavenly corpse Jiang Feng. The probability of him being left behind was too high. He had a guess in his heart. Ziwu didn't want to be entangled with Jiang Feng anymore. If he waited until the experts of Yuanzhong arrived, it wouldn't be so easy to leave. Thinking of this, Ziwu immediately revealed his true form, turning into a huge purple mist clear feather crane. Then, he spread his wings and instantly streaked across the sky, turning into a stream of light and disappearing into the distance. In terms of speed, the purple mist clear feather crane was enough to be ranked in the top 5 of the demon clan. As for Jiang Feng, although he was powerful, his speed was his weakness. So, when Ziwu escaped, he could only roar angrily on the spot. For a moment, the beasts in the endless mountain range prostrated themselves, not daring to make the slightest movement. Compared to the suppression of Ziwu's demon clan identity, Jiang Feng's tyrannical aura made these demon clan members tremble in fear. Not long after, Zheng Feng and the others had already rushed over. Many people had grave expressions in their eyes as they looked at the furious Jiang Feng on the spot and the ground that seemed to have been destroyed. But some people also felt relieved. The demon clan has retreated. I hope Elder Jiang can return to the mountain. Zheng Feng cupped his hands and said politely. For Jiang Feng, Qin Shujian had given him the position of an elder on the surface. Although this elder was similar to a puppet, he still needed an identity to settle down. When Zheng Feng was speaking, the other elders of Yuan's sect did not easily approach. For Jiang Feng, they also had a lot of fear in their hearts. After all, this was not an ordinary person, but a sky corpse refined by special means. In the entire Yuan sect, except for Qin Shujian who could control him, no one else had the ability to control him. If Jiang Feng were to kill someone at this time, no one would be able to stop him. Fortunately, Jiang Feng did not make a move when he heard that. Instead, he glanced at them with his red eyes. That glance could make people feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Seeing this, Zheng Feng seemed to understand something. He took out a black robe from his storage ring and handed it over. Just as the other disciples were looking up, Zheng Feng and the others had already returned by air. Accompanying them was Jiang Feng, who had chased after them, but now had his face covered by the black robe. After returning to the mountain gate, Jiang Feng consciously went to the front of the mountain gate stone tablet and sat down cross-legged as usual. Other than that, he did not do anything else. This is Elder Jiang of our sect. No one is allowed to approach and disturb him. Otherwise, they will be dealt with according to the sect rules. There will be no mercy. Zheng Feng looked at the others and warned them sternly. He was really worried that these people would desperately rush up after seeing Jiang Feng's strength. If it were those variant humans, it would be fine. If they died, then so be it. After all, they could still be resurrected. But if the others followed, then the scene would be a little bloody. If Jiang Feng were to be ruthless, no one would be able to stop him. When that time came, these people would die in vain. Hearing that, the other disciples all cupped their hands and replied, "Yes, Master. Disperse." Yes. Seeing the disciples scattering like birds and beasts, Zheng Feng took another look at Jiang Feng and then left with the other elders. Very soon, the news that the black-robed man at the mountain gate stone tablet was a Skyman expert spread throughout the entire Yuan sect as if it had grown wings. Skyman expert. Just these 4 words were enough to attract people's attention. Immediately, there were many disciples who heard the news and came over. There were even many players who used various methods to get close to Jiang Feng, wanting to accept some missions or hoping to be valued by the other party and be accepted as a disciple. However, they also remembered what Zheng Feng had said and did not dare to use other methods to harass the other party. They only communicated with Jiang Feng with a normal and polite attitude. However, no matter how these people spoke or how polite their attitude was, they could not get the slightest response from Jiang Feng. Gradually, some players also gave up on this anger. A Skyman expert who could only watch but not accept missions made many people feel regretful. However, there were also an extremely small number of people whose expressions changed several times after hearing Jiang Feng's name. Elder Jiang. The other party's surname was Jiang. Thinking of this, some people thought of some rumors and had a rough idea in their minds. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.